Joe Biden appears to have pooped his pants on stage during the D-Day ceremony. And there are a lot of people, I see this, some moderate anti-establishment people, but also, of course, the Democrat media rushing to Joe Biden's defense, arguing he did not, in fact, poop his pants. He was just trying to sit in a chair that wasn't there. The only problem, the chair was there, and I saw it. The real story is that Biden did this weird move where while he is standing up on stage with Emmanuel Macron, his wife, and Macron's wife, he crouches down, grimaces, leans up, and then goes back down again, and then goes back up. Everyone who saw this immediately went, dude, he's pooping. I woke up in the morning, I'm scrolling Twitter, and I saw a tweet from the Daily Caller, and it said, I can't remember what it said, because it was originally from RNC Research, and I saw this video of Biden doing this weird crouch, and I'm like, is he pooping? That's genuinely what I thought he would be doing. Now, a bunch of people have come out and said, no, that's ridiculous, but there's no explanation for what he's doing. By all means, if you think he's having some kind of like muscle spasm or he's delirious, fine. Whatever it is, it's weird. But of course, the big debate is whether or not he pooped his pants. And so I guess we'll talk about that. Apparently, there's more significant news, like Russia says they're prepared to strike NATO forces in Ukraine, and we can be pretty worried about that. And then you've got a Democrat in New York saying that MAGA people need re-education camps. And she's like, maybe we can call it something else because we don't want to call it that. Oh, boy. Well, it'll be fun, I guess. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com and buy Cast Brew coffee. We got Ian's Graphene Dream now available. If you would like to dream like Ian, I don't know if I would recommend it, but it is available to you. If you go to castbrew.com, you can pick up Ian's Graphene Dream low acidity medium roast coffee. Cast Brew is our company. When you buy from Cast Brew, you're supporting the show and the work we're doing. And our efforts to build physical locations where people can meet, hang out. Our first location, of course, is in Martinsburg. And it appears that the drawings have been submitted and we're now just waiting for approval. I'll just say, perhaps the reason the building was for sale in the first place is because of all of the nightmarish things we have to do to update it to make it actually function. So, I roll. But we're working on things behind the scenes as well. So head over to Cast Brew, buy our coffee, but also go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member so you can hang out for the members only call-in show coming up tonight at 10 p.m. where you as members get to call in and talk to us and our guests. And we're going to have a good fun. It's not so family friendly, that one. This one we try to keep family friendly. The uncensored one, not so much. Smash that like button and subscribe to this channel. Y'all can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, anywhere else. X, I should say, not Twitter. Dead named them. At Timcast. And share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Seth Weathers.
Great to be here. I love the new digs. Nice setup.
Right on. You're the beer guy.
I am,
among other things.
I am the beer guy.
Calendar guy.
Well, that was all part of the beer. Conservative Dad's Ultra Right beer. We started last year after the Bud Light debacle, I guess you could call it. And we've been going strong since then. We've recently launched subscriptions on our website so you can get your monthly case of Conservative Dad's Ultra Right beer delivered to your doorstep in approximately 40 states.
Right on. Well, thanks for hanging out. Should be fun. We got Elad hanging out.
Hey, what's up, Tim? I'm Elad for Scanner News, sipping on some Cast Brew coffee. This is Appalachian Nights. It's delicious. Might go Joe Biden mode before the end of the show. Chris, what's up?
How's it going? I hope that doesn't happen for you. Chris Carr, the executive editor at SCNR. That's scannernews.com. Always a pleasure to be here.
What's up, guys? I'm Serge. Let's do it.
All right. Well, we'll jump into that first story here. And we start with this video from RNC Research. Awkward, it says. Let us play the video for you. There's Joe Biden shaking hands with Macron, and then he crashes down a little bit.
Please welcome the Honorable Lloyd J. Austin.
Okay, let's mute this audio. They're all standing there, waiting for Lloyd Austin to come out. There's no sitting, and Biden does this weird crouch. Okay, so the weird thing about this is that he crouches down, he gets up a little bit, he crouches down. He's not focusing on everything. He's not focusing on anything, right? And the question is, what is he doing? I woke up in the morning, I saw this video, and the first thing I thought was, is he pooping? Like, is he just like standing there being like, oh boy, you're like, it's happening. And so I looked into it. And I mean this not to be rude. I mean, you got veterans there who are 100 years old, but around 30% of people over 80 wear diapers for, the inability to keep things in at that age. I don't think that is unreasonable to suggest that Joe Biden at his age is dealing with these issues. Daily Caller said, Biden in France at D-Day ceremony. This is the tweet that I saw. And I'm like, what is he doing? Some people suggested he's looking at something on the ground. And I'm like, that doesn't explain the weird crouching that he's doing. Others have said he's trying to sit down, but there's no chair. No, there's literally a chair. You can see it right behind him. There is a chair sitting right there. So what is he doing? The fairest argument can be made is everyone's supposed to be standing as Lloyd Austin is coming in, and he decides to have a seat, but then decides not to, and then decides to have a seat, but then decides not to. That's why he's bobbing up and down a little bit. Well, of course, if you Google search it right now, you can see that there are tons of stories. Joe Biden tries to sit in invisible chair. Did Biden poop himself? Right-wingers claim he pooped himself. Biden's D-Day speech. Well, that one's at least normal. Olivia Dunn goes bikini horseback riding in Mexico. I have no idea what that's to do with Joe Biden pooping himself, but whatever. The Daily Dot says Biden poop. France video subject of debate. And then, of course, the Daily Beast rushing to the defense of Joe Biden. Right-wingers claim Biden pooped himself at a D-Day ceremony because everything's so dumb. Guys, he's 81 years old. It is not unreasonable. Let me say this to you. If you went to any writer at the Daily Beast, Justin Baragona, the guy who wrote this, and you were having just coffee, and you were like, the other day I was having a family event. My 81-year-old grandpa he crouches down, and then he lifts up, and he crouches down again, and gets up, and then he's not really focused on anything. His face kind of grimacing. He'd go, "Oh man, did he have an accident?" That's what any reasonable person would say. But because Joe Biden is the Democrat president, the media wants to rush to his defense and argue that he did not, in fact, have an accident on stage.
It looked like he at least got caught up in a brain fart. Like he couldn't decide whether or not to sit down, and then got like confused in the moment. It was just like, oh, what am I doing? Kind of like, should I sit? Nobody else is sitting. Oh, where am I? Oh, maybe I'll actually stand up. And then doing it very slowly because he's old.
But that is a weird, circuitous explanation for his behavior.
Totally. Yeah, he's a weird.
It's just the most charitable one, given his past track record for his cognitive decline.
When you hear hooves, you think horses, not zebras. Or zebras, as our Australian friends would call it. When Joe Biden, an 81-year-old man who has been accused of pooping himself in the past, is standing up when everyone else is standing up, it's not a seating moment. They're all standing and waiting for Lloyd Austin, and then he does this crouch thing. You think 81-year-old man, he's going at it, He's
It's almost like he has a depth perception issue as well, which that can be a cognitive thing as well. He maybe thought the chair really was right there, but he's leaning down. It's like, oh, it's not here.
But the problem I have with that is, why would he sit down when no one is sitting down? That doesn't make sense.
I think he can't stand that long, maybe.
But so the issue would then be, Joe Biden as a world leader can't stand up.
Right. No,
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Is that your argument, Daily Beast? He can't stand up and he's struggling. Wow. I don't know what's worse. Old man has to wear diapers. That's seemingly normal. Or Joe Biden can no longer stand. Put him in a wheelchair then.
It's a little bit striking how similar Jill Biden and Macron's wife look. Like, I feel like there's a clear archetype in...
Candace Owens said that woman was actually a man.
I wasn't gonna say it.
You weren't going to say it.
I knew someone would, but I just know
I
what
think
she
she
said.
staked her entire reputation on it, if I'm not
She
mistaken.
certainly did, yeah.
And do we have any update? Do you want to zoom in?
I can't look at that woman the same anymore, because now when I look at her, I'm like, yeah.
She looks exactly like Jill. Maybe Jill's also...
My conspiracy theory is that Candace was trying to get out of her contract. So, you say something like that, and Daily Wire's like, ooh, we're going to get sued. But no, her contract was ending anyway. So
when you mentioned Lloyd Austin, too, Tim, it's interesting because Lloyd Austin, he was caught in that little controversy because he had the surgery, I believe, like a cancer that was treatable, but nobody knew where he was.
Yeah.
And there were no ramifications for that still. Now, I think there was a little uproar of people wanting him to get fired, but a very irresponsible thing to do, because if something were to happen, nobody knew where Secretary Lloyd Austin was, not even Joe Biden, I believe, at the time.
Don't worry, the White House interns would handle it like everything else.
It's troubling. The chain of command there becomes an issue and all that stuff, but that was all swept under the rug.
Did he in fact come out? Because I haven't seen that footage yet.
Who?
Lloyd Austin.
Actually,
was he gone again? Okay, all right. I just want to make sure.
It's an amazing event. I mean, the veterans, it's truly incredible to see, these guys, many of them who are over 100 years old, who are attending. There was one amazing video of one of the veterans walking to the beach and then, touching the water. That stuff's inspirational, man. It is sad to me that, a couple things. One is, our nation is led by, unfortunately, not the best of us, because the men who are willing to do what needs to be done often don't come home. And so that leaves the people typically the politicians we have, people like Joe Biden, are not the people that we want to be leading us. So it's also sad to me. I am envious of the caliber of man from back then that we lack today.
You're going to give me a soapbox, but we have a massive testosterone issue in this country. And I don't say that sarcastically or belittling it just to be funny. Like, we really do. I think it's like the average, 30-year-old has the equivalent of a 60 or 70-year-old male of like 40 years ago. Like, we've dropped over 50% in the last 50 years. That's absolutely insane.
Do you remember the Try Guys BuzzFeed scandal? Testosterone gate. It's these 4 guys who were making a video for BuzzFeed, and they're like, we're going to get our testosterone levels checked. And they're like, what are they, like in their 20s? And the testosterone was that of 80-year-old men.
I believe it. I mean, you see that everywhere you go. They're wearing masks.
Well,
they put signs up letting you know.
They don't eat meat. They don't exercise. And it's not even about, I'm not talking about lifting, although you should.
Be nice.
I'm talking about these people don't even walk, right? So there's a really interesting a post that went viral where it was like, caloric intake has stayed the same, but weight has increased dramatically, obesity. What could this mean? And of course, the default response most people gave was like, they're putting poison in our food. It's making us fat. And I'm like, dude, it's the internet. When the internet came out, people stopped walking places. You used to have to walk out of your house, walk to the bus station, walk to your office, walk. Want to go to lunch? You got to walk. Now it's all order. Now it's all remote work.
There's a ton of kids in my neighborhood, and this is happening even with kids in a lot of places. There's a ton of kids in my neighborhood. I never see these kids. They're never outside. When I first moved in, we have a neighborhood pool, and once I realized there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood, I was like, man, this thing's always going to be crowded. We go there on July the 4th, and there's no one there.
I can't believe you just said that. This is something my wife and I talk about every day because we're surrounded by neighbors and they all have like 3 and 4 kids. And I'm just like, I see them maybe once or twice, maybe outside once a week. But throughout the day, at evening, when some of the kids are out, when our kids are definitely out, they're gone. And every day we're just like, where are all the kids that we see on occasion in cars driving by? And they're just like cooped up inside, I guess. And it's crazy to me. You got to get kids outside.
I agree.
Wow.
Got to catch some fireflies.
Jeez.
I think this was where Biden pooped himself was the 80-year anniversary of us storming the beaches of Normandy. And I think it's worth mentioning that our greatest generation is kind of coming to an end. And all the veterans from that war probably won't be with us in the next decade or so. And their legacy of the peace in Europe that we've been seeing might be coming to a close.
Right around the time that Joe Biden is setting Europe on fire.
It's just, I mean, Americans had to come save Europeans from a shit show that was World War II. And we've had a more or less peace last there for the last 80 years. And I think we're seeing that come to a crumble. And as we're seeing NATO kind of crumble and Russia become more bellicose in Eastern Europe. And I think the best way to honor our heroes that fought in Normandy would be trying to have and continue a lasting peace in Europe. And if it doesn't, then we're going to have to eventually go save them again otherwise. So
we're at the door. We're at the doorstep of full-scale Eastern European warfare.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting, too, because I think we're going to be getting into it soon, but we are escalating now with allowing Ukraine to strike inside Russia, bordering areas in Russia where they are staging to attack Ukraine with American weapons. That hasn't happened before with our weapons. So,
yeah, Biden gave the command to his vassal state to begin firing on Russia directly.
Which is very bizarre when you think about it. The fact that we might as well loop them in as a territory like Puerto Rico or something at this point.
I think that the reverse is kind of bizarre. I think it's bizarre to kind of give them weapons and be like, no. As soon as the Russians go across, they'll come attack you. They'll launch from inside of Russia. But no. Once they cross this arbitrary line on a map, I know they just attacked you and will attack you soon. You can't attack them.
I don't think we should be giving them weapons.
Right.
To begin with, So,
we are at war with Russia. That's it. In any context, if Russia goes to war in Ukraine, for whatever reason Russia goes to war in Ukraine, and then we say to the Ukrainians, we will train you, arm you, provide the intelligence, sink, using, it is the stupidest thing in the world that there are people trying to claim that we loaded up a rocket onto a rocket launcher and then drove it to Ukraine, got out and said, okay, can you press fire at that Russian guy right now? And the Ukrainian guy was like, beep. And then We didn't do anything, Russia. Don't look at us.
But in a time of war, I think it's like, when Russia clearly invaded Ukraine and these are two countries at war, it's like, obviously you should be able to attack the country.
Why did Japan bomb Pearl Harbor?
They'd say because we blockaded them. But why did we blockade Japan? Does anybody know? Because they were holocausting the Chinese. They were invading the Philippines because they were being imperial. So that's why.
Why did Germany declare war on the United States?
Because we declared war on Japan.
So you have the United States seemingly uninvolved, but clearly involved in supporting the Allies through blockades and weapons.
I mean,
so we're at war. It's the idea that we can give Ukraine all of its weapons, that we can train them to use it, tell them where to shoot them, have private contractors, American citizens operating as volunteers, and special forces and NATO personnel on the ground in Ukraine, and then be like, we're not at war.
We're in a proxy war. I'm not going to...
It's not a proxy war.
It's just a word.
It's not American soldiers. So
American soldiers... so
some volunteer warrior.
That's nonsense, dude. You think people are retarded?
I think we do have probably some special forces on the ground over there.
That's a fact. We do have special forces.
Special forces there.
NATO personnel are giving orders.
Sure. But I mean, again, does that mean when we were fighting proxy wars back against in the Cold War, were we actually fighting Russia when the Soviet Union was kind of helping North Korea in the Korean War under the table and supplying them with weapons? Were we really? It's a proxy war. I don't think we're at full scale war with them.
We are at the point where NATO personnel are operating in Ukraine, and the only distinction is, hey, Ukrainian guy, press fire, and they go, okay, and they're like, hey. Do you think Russia actually cares or about anything you're saying? What you're saying matters only to the deep state and default liberals who don't pay attention. Russia is not looking at this going, damn, the NATO personnel who gave the missiles, the intelligence, and the training didn't press the button themselves. Guess we can't retaliate. That's not what's happening. What's happening is Russia is outright saying, we can. So let's do this. I was going to get into the Bannon stuff, but we'll jump straight into the war stuff, because we do have this ready to go. Politico reports Moscow ready to strike French military trainers in Ukraine. No instructor involved in training Ukrainian military has immunity, the Kremlin says. Russia responded with a new threat, and this is from 2 days ago, of escalation on Tuesday to reports that France could soon send trainers to help Ukrainian military. No instructor involved in training Ukrainian military has immunity. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told the press, according to a report from the AP, it doesn't matter whether they're French or not. Last week, Ukraine's top commander, Alexander Sersky, probably pronouncing that wrong, said French trainers would come to Ukraine soon. French President Emmanuel Macron, who will meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky this week during the 8th anniversary of D-Day, blah, blah, blah. There's no consensus today on officially sending, taking on, or endorsing ground troops. The point of this story is Russia doesn't live in this fake world that the deep state military-industrial complex is trying to put Americans in. When they come out, so I tweeted, Western forces have begun firing onto Russian territory. And then I get this community note, and it's like, it is inaccurate to call Ukraine Western forces as they're a sovereign nation. Dude, we're not stupid, okay? The Ukrainians would have surrendered in 2 seconds had we not gotten involved. And Zelensky is only operating when given permission by Joe Biden.
We're paying their government employees pensions.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think we're pretty involved.
There's no war without U.S. funding and NATO training and NATO arms at all. The war is quite literally Ukrainian cannon fodder holding Western weapons at the direction of the West. It's not a proxy war would be like, sure, we had the Mujahideen and we armed and trained these guys and said, go have fun. Ukraine is, you serve us, you do what we tell you to do when we tell you to do it, and we will supply you with training, weapons, and intelligence. It's fascinating because Ukraine, I'll put air quotes here, sank the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Navy, or Armada, whatever you'd call it. And it was only because the West gave the intelligence to Ukraine and the weapons and then told them when to press the button. Russia is not sitting back going, if only they would do it. Damn, we can't do anything about this. It's just Ukraine. No. Recently, Russia removed the barriers, international markers between Estonia and Russia, and it's looking like there may be an escalation in other countries. We'll see. But the idea that Russia views this as just a war with Ukraine, I'm sorry, dude. This idea only flies to default liberals who are either trying to pretend that this war is justified, or they're trying to convince stupid people that they've not started World War III.
Yeah, the war would be over if the U.S. wasn't financing it.
There wouldn't
That's
be one.
That's what I'm saying. Well,
Russia would have taken the Donbass in 2 seconds, and that would be the end of it.
correct.
Yeah, but now yesterday in St. Petersburg, Putin said that we're actually headed toward serious problems. That was his words, and he harbors a lot of animosity toward this country, and I'm not going to be surprised when he decides to retaliate.
And he will.
Yeah,
I think nukes.
he has no choice at this point.
I don't think we'll see him
Practically.
retaliate against the United States. I could see him escalating within Ukraine, but I think we're seeing Ukraine get more and more desperate as this war kind of drags on more. We've been seeing Ukraine attack, use one-off drones. They've already been using non-Western weapons, trying to attack deep into Russia. They've been attacking oil depots now, not necessarily military targets, but things to affect Russia's economy. I feel like we kind of swept the Nord Stream 2 bombing kind of under the rug and just don't talk about that now. But as this war continues to drag on, I am concerned of a more desperate Ukraine trying to fight a more guerrilla-style war, and I don't see Russia getting less bellicose. I see Russia attempting to take more chomps off of Ukraine as they get the chance. They started with Crimea in 2014. We saw the escalation start now in 2020 with the eastern parts of Ukraine. The more opportunities that Russia gets, the more territory that they're going to take. And it's unfortunate that 80 years after the greatest generation, the bravest among us, stormed the beaches, that the peace in Europe is ended. So...
What's that thing where every 80 years we have a thing?
Oh, that sucks. I feel like we missed it with the Cold War. Well, no, World War I and World War II were only...
The Strauss-Howe generational theory, the fourth turning they call it. Every 80 years we get some major conflict. And, we've talked about it should be, if there is a pattern, I don't know if there is, civil war, maybe both. So 80 years ago, obviously, what did we have? We had World War II. Today's the 80th anniversary of D-Day. 80 years before that, what did we have?
Before World War II?
Yeah.
Was it the Crimean War?
Civil Crimean War.
There was also a Crimean War.
Civil War.
I think 80 years before. Okay.
80 years before that.
76, baby.
The American Revolution.
Jones when you need him.
So we had an international conflict, followed by a civil conflict, followed by international conflict. What will be our 80-year fourth turning? Will it be both? Maybe. Maybe this time we get both.
I think we had a couple of powder keg opportunities. In Ukraine, it was sort of a powder keg opportunity. In Israel, with Hezbollah in the north and Gaza and Hamas in the south, that was also something that had the opportunity to escalate and didn't. Now I fear we're going to see something in the Pacific with China getting more bellicose, the communists over there trying to take over Taiwan, which hopefully we won't see, but many in our government are scared of us coming across within the next decade. So I think that might be the real tripwire where America actually gets involved. Not that America isn't involved in Ukraine or in the Middle East, but we might be more likely to be boots on the ground in Taiwan and the Pacific than we would be for Ukraine or the Middle East. So,
man, depending on how conspiratorial you want to get, there's varying degrees of they want this war to go ham. They want it to escalate as dramatically as possible.
What drives that? Is it just like a general death drive, or why do they want it to escalate that? Are they just thinking about the profiteering that they can make?
I will say,
I think that's overly simplistic. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if going to war meant the U.S. government bought for everyone's rations a 6-pack of Conservative Dad's ultra-right beer, I would be a little conflicted about war myself. I'm not saying I'd be for it.
Send the boys some beers, they say.
It would just make me struggle. War's not so bad.
The issue of profitability is limited, in my opinion. I think what they're looking at more is times of great conflict are opportunities for great change. So it's very difficult to move the United States system that's in play. A lot of people wonder why it is big corporations keep doing the things they're doing. So I remember watching this video about a bunch of activists went to the CEO of Shell's house protesting, and they were like, "You're global warming and you're destroying the world." He came out and sat with them and then said, what should we do? And they were like, "You should do this." And he goes, "We're doing that." And they were like, "Well, why don't you start investing in these?" And they go, "We do that too." And they were like, "Oh." And he was like, "Yeah, I don't think you realize that you have this gigantic machine with 50,000 employees, and you make a move and it's a drop of water in the ocean. So if you want to change the government, how do you do it? Take a look at the Constitution, for instance. Can't get rid of it. It's pesky if you're an authoritarian. Civil war gets rid of it. You stage a civil war, you can overhaul the government overnight and completely change the fabric of the nation. Look at the American Civil War. It was an overtly federalist system with a weak federal government. And then after the Civil War, it was a single federal entity that the states were at the behest of. Before the Civil War, the federal government served the states. After the Civil War, the states served the federal government. If there is a drive for international conflict, it is likely if you get an international conflict on the scale of, World War III, you will get Joe Biden or whoever is in the office of the presidency suspend habeas corpus. Maybe you get a presidential directive 51 type scenario where they create a new single branch continuity of government system where they claim it is an offshoot of the American system, but in a time of great emergency, and then they can just change everything, finger snap, and no one resists. Why? Because there's a war's going on. That's the opportunity. Money is after the fact. They print money. They can do whatever they want with it. But if you want real global dominance, if you want to expand the liberal economic order and create a new world order that would give more control to the hegemonic system, you need a massive conflict to break the binds of the existing system and allow you to implement mass change on a grand scale that no one resists.
I think that is the goal of the anti-America coalition, because the current hegemon, the current status quo is American dominance. But the goal of the anti-American coalition, the CCP in China, the Ayatollah in Iran, Putin in Russia, among a couple of other, North Korea, a couple of others, Cuba too, Venezuela, whatever. That's what that coalition seeks. So, and really, they have nothing in common with each other except for their anti-Americanism and being anti-American world dominance. So, we should understand who views us as enemies and views, our great liberal order as enemies, in my opinion.
But it's a really short-sighted power play, though, because they're playing with like a Dr. Strangelove scenario. I mean, do they have no fear of nuclear collapse?
I think nuclear collapse still works for this premise.
So we're going to survive it.
Well, yeah, of course. Like, the humans aren't going anywhere. And that's why I say people are like, oh, it's so black-pilled. I'm like, what does that mean, black-pilled, right now in this context? Like, if the United States government were to collapse, humanity survives. The fall of empire doesn't mean humanity ceases to exist. And I know that people listening to this are resourceful, smart people who are going to be able to figure it out. So, like, what's the worst-case scenario? The expansive interstate trade system breaks and we become more self-reliant. The American economy falters. You're less likely to own a laptop and you're more likely to have to farm chickens or something. The worst case scenario is not that bad. If we are to win, Donald Trump gets elected, and then what we hope for happens, securing our border, bringing back jobs, then you get prosperity and great stuff. But your worst case scenario is it'll suck. You'll be all right. I suppose, actually, the worst case scenario is they win, they get gulags, and then you end up in a camp. So that would suck.
Like Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon is getting locked up. Let's do this. Before we get into all the Bannon stuff, we do have another clip. This is from ABC News. Biden speaking with, who is that? How do you pronounce that guy's name? Weir? Is that his name? I don't know the guy's name. RNC Research. Are American weapons being used right now inside of Russia? Biden, yes. It is not. It is not the use of American weapons in Russia that has me concerned. Certainly it does concern me, but I would like to play this video for you, and I want you to listen.
I know for years you resisted the idea of American weapons being used for any sort of direct strike inside Russia. But we did witness this shift in recent days, authorizing American weapons for limited direct strikes. Are American weapons being used right now inside Russia?
They're authorized to be used in proximity to the border. We're not authorizing strikes 200 miles into Russia. We're not authorizing strikes on Moscow, on the Kremlin.
I know for years.
What did you notice about that?
The mumbling and kind of...
It's so painful to watch.
The inability to speak without gasping for air.
We're not authorizing. We're firing rockets. The body language is not...
The dude's gone. He is gone. Look. It's kind of wild. I was talking to somebody who is like 50, skateboarder, and he was saying he's like, I can feel the breakdown now. Like every day, it's like more and more you feel your body breaking down. I'm like, oh, that sucks. But that happens when you get old. But I'm 38, and Like, this is the first time I've ever been like, oh, my Achilles is starting to get sore because I didn't stretch my calf enough. I was like, that's never happened before. Well, I'm 38. Like, these things start to happen. The older you get, the faster you decline. It's exponential. So into your 80s, you're 80 and you're talking like this, and I'm going to do this. You're 81, 82. Listening to Joe Biden in this, it's a combination of things that scare me. Yes, the U.S. is using weapons in Russia, but the way he said it, because Putin heard that, and he's laughing right now.
The funny thing about this clip is while it was playing, me and Chris were actually looking at each other, shaking our heads for what I presume are completely different reasons. I was shaking my head because I thought this was obvious. It was a stupid red line to begin with, that we were giving weapons to Ukraine and not allowing them to use them against legitimate military targets in Russia. If the Russians are staging across the Ukraine border, the Russia-Ukraine border, and about to attack Ukraine, I think it's pretty obvious that, it's a legitimate military target they're about to attack, and that's good reason to attack them. Chris, maybe you could explain while you were shaking your head. I suspect it's because
it was basically what Tim was saying. It's just the pain of watching him struggle to get out the whatever trickle of words that he can manage
inside Russia.
They're authorized to be used in proximity.
The eyes and the cringe when he starts, the wincing.
The being unable to say a sentence without gasping for air.
He's trying to quote.
We're not allowed to fire 200 rockets.
You can tell he's thinking. He's trying to quote and remember what he was supposed to say when this question came up.
Grandpa's gone, guys. He needs to be. They got to put a Matlock for him. Actually, he was probably how old? He was probably in his 60s no, I guess it would have been in his 50s, late 40s. Yeah, that's about the time for somebody watching Matlock. When was Matlock? Was that 70s or 80s?
Oh, Matlock
was
80s.
Great.
80s.
Yeah.
How old was he in the 80s? He was in his 50s, late 50s, early 60s.
Must have been 60s because
No. It's 2024. He was 60 in 2000.
Oh,
yeah. So he was in his 40s, I guess.
wow.
Ben Matlock was much sharper than Biden's ever been.
Oh yeah, even at his worst. Yeah.
Whatever the show was that he watched, Leave It to Beaver. I don't know. The dude's ancient. He was born in 30 something.
Hey, my kids actually watch Leave It to Beaver, so to be fair.
Nice.
What is that? I don't know the reference. Is that
Oh wow.
Man.
Leave It to Beaver?
50s sitcom.
Yeah.
What about the Andy Griffith Show?
I thought that you were about to say that's a Daily Wire new kids animated show or something. Leave It to Beaver?
Definitely
That's
not.
what it sounds like.
How about the Bleep Van Bleep show? We're not allowed to say those words on this, so we'll just say Bleep Van Bleep.
Oh, okay. That threw me off for a minute.
That was a Family Guy joke. The censors, the FCC comes in on TV, and they're like, now back to beep, Van beep. You can't say those words on YouTube. This is the world we're at. Now, I will say for Trump, he's spry. 77, big difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and it's unmistakable. I don't know. I was saying this before the show. I don't think Donald Trump is on uppers, but he sure acts like it. The dude's got energy.
If he's not, imagine him actually on uppers.
I know.
Some real stuff.
I don't think he is, because I saw him at the fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago. He was walking around, plainly visible, doing his thing, talking to people, shaking hands. Then he got up on stage and talked. And I was like, dude's got energy. I met him. He walks over, shakes hands. He walks over, he's talking to some women. Then he walks down, everyone's waving. Then he's talking to members of Congress. Then he gets up to the podium and he's like, and I was like, this dude is fired up.
Well, one distinction I think is worth making is that Trump has spent his entire life, for the most part, in the free market. This man has been a government official for over 50 years, for nearly 50 years, one of the two. And I think that this is the result of living that long, serving in the government. I mean, his soul has just been sucked out of him, and he's got no life left behind his eyes.
Delaware is Biden town.
Yeah.
So, it's been Biden town for 50 plus years. I don't know if Hunter's going to be able to get a fair trial there as a result of that, but yeah, we'll meet to Delaware.
At least he got a nice rest stop with his name on it. It's a nice place to stop at if you're driving through Delaware, folks.
I imagine by November, Biden, first of all, this debate's going to be incredible. This debate, I don't think the debate will happen. There's no way this man can have a debate.
You don't think it's going to happen?
I don't think it's going to happen.
So what do you think? What's the
I'm probably wrong. I don't know.
it?
I just...
what are they going to say?
So part of me thinks the debate will happen. It has to happen. But my soul says, dude, there's no way. There's no way. He's going to come up with some excuse. We had some super chat saying, now that Trump's a felon, he's going to say, I am not going to grace a felons on the stage or whatever. But Could you imagine?
Not gonna grace a felon.
That, or give the dignity to a felon or whatever. Could you imagine they're going to have who's doing the debate? Who's hosting it? It's CNN, right?
I think they scheduled multiple.
There's at least two.
You're gonna have like Caitlin Collins going to be like, She has like resting Joker face, so she's always like this.
I love resting Joker face. That's awesome.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I did.
She's that
After
weird,
you pointed it out, yeah.
She's just like the whole time, like. But she's going to be like. President Trump, you have talked about closing the border. Trump's going to be like, look, we got to close the border. We got an open border. We can't have it. There's too many people coming across. It's terrible what they're doing. And then she's going to say, President Biden, how would you answer? And he goes, I signed an executive order to limit. Is that going to work for the American people? Dude. The number one issue, we pulled this up yesterday, as of May from Gallup, is bad leadership, poor governance. That's clearly Joe Biden's lack of capabilities. And that's going to be too present on the debate stage. They can't do this debate.
I think their perspective on it is the bar is so low for Biden right now. And the more we all talk about how declined he is mentally, cognitively, that if he is able just to get through the debate, still standing or sitting, however it may be, they're going to consider that a success. And they're going to say he was great. He was sitting there the whole time, smiling. Here's a great photograph afterwards.
He's going to stand there smiling. Caitlin Collins is going to be like, Donald Trump, how would you handle Russia? And he goes, well, Russia, they're a very fierce country. Vladimir Putin's very smart, so we're going to have to negotiate right away and no more sending money. He's going to get this long, verbose answer. And then she's going to turn to Joe Biden and say, Joe Biden, are you opposed to an expansion of war? Yes. Thank you, Joe Biden. Now to the next question. They're going to have to give him the questions in advance. They're going to have to give him preferential treatment because Joe Biden. That
would never happen in a CNN debate. Just FYI, they would never do that.
I know. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine CNN ever giving the answers or the questions in advance to Democrats.
Yeah,
like they did that one time.
Donna Brazile did it.
that we all know about already.
And then I think she got hired by Fox News after too.
And
like
fantastic.
Donna Brazile?
Yeah.
Actually, I think he's right. I think so.
After the fact. I could fact check that. Yeah, but I'm like 90% sure that after that, Fox News still hired her. So it's one big club and you are not in it.
It's the same club they used to beat you over the head with. That's the George Carlin joke. Yeah. Part of me thinks that, with Biden's broken brain being the top issue, the debate will seal the deal for Trump support. But I think I got to imagine they got a shadow campaign plan of some sort. Like they're not just sitting around doing nothing behind the scenes. Unless they really have given up. I don't know.
So for these smaller stories that get swept under the rug, earlier I mentioned Secretary Lloyd Austin, who didn't disclose that he needed to get a surgery to the president, allegedly. That was just swept under the rug. That's a huge scandal. For Donna Brazile, also allegedly feeding questions to, I believe, Hillary Clinton in 2016. Following that, she served as a Fox News contributor until May 2021, and she's an ABC News contributor now. So verified liar. Like clearly a Democrat operative, but no issue working in media and being hired by both Fox News and ABC. ABC's hosting the second debate.
Okay. I want to give a quick shout out to Babylon B before we jump to the next segment. Babylon B has this funny article. Aides claim Biden nailed a 360 kickflip McTwist on the White House half-pipe, but oh darn, the reporters just missed it. The reason I want to give them a shout out is that if you're a skateboarder, the joke is even better. So for those, and I think it was on accident because I don't think the Babylon Bee, I don't think a skateboarder wrote this, but I'll just explain. I think most of you got the joke. Biden is really good at skateboarding, but only when no one's looking. However, as a skateboarder, what makes the joke extra funny is there is no such trick as a 360 kickflip McTwist. So for me, the joke was they're clearly lying and making things up, and we can tell. And for those who don't skate, they're lying, and it's obvious because Biden cannot skateboard. But just for the record, a McTwist is a 540, 1.5 rotations. So you would not do a 360 540. That makes no sense. If the argument was that they meant to say a 360 kickflip followed by a McTwist, you'd probably call that like a tray flip McTwist or a 360 flip McTwist. You wouldn't say 360 kickflip. But I just wanted to give a skateboarder shout out to the Babylon Bee for that one. All right, let's roll. We got the big news on the Trump side. Congratulations are in order for Mr. President Donald Trump. From SCNR.com, Trump announces his campaign has raised almost $400 million since guilty verdict in New York case. More campaign funds were given to this campaign than any campaign they think in history. You got to love when Trump adds these qualifying statements to make his statement true. Because if he said more campaign funds were given to this campaign than any campaign in history, they're going to go fact check false. So he says they think. We don't know who they is, but there you go. Trump announced a jaw-dropping haul during a rally in Phoenix. Quote, I just went through a rigged trial in New York with a highly conflicted judge where there was no crime. It was made up, fabricated stuff, but they didn't want to bring the case. They could have brought the case 7 years ago. It's only when you run for office they bring the cases. Trump said that it was conveniently brought in the middle of his presidential campaign where he's beating Biden by a lot. By the way, right after the announcement of this, more campaign funds were given to this campaign than any campaign they think in history. Almost $400 million. 400. That's amazing. I do think they're going to be including the $100 million pledge from Miriam Adelson. Yeah. I think it's fair to remove that from the equation. And then you're looking at just shy of $300 million in hard donations being given to Donald Trump. So the $100 million doesn't go directly to Trump. That's the issue. It's probably going to super PACs and things like this. But they did raise $141 million in direct contributions. This was previously reported. I think it is absolutely fair to say that since that last reporting, we're now going on just over around a week since the guilty verdict. Trump likely is at that number from smaller donors or from individual donors directly to his campaign. I don't care about the polls, ladies and gentlemen. Money talks, BS walks. The question is, does the money matter? Now, Trump launched, have you guys seen that swamp the vote thing?
No, but what is it?
Mail-in voting. Basically, they're Republicans
finally getting on board.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Goodness.
And Trump's calling it too big to rig.
Okay, yeah.
And it's a great move. Whether you actually do anything or not, telling the Trump voters it's too big to rig now because we've got the mass removes the demoralization.
Yeah.
When Trump came out right after the 2020 election and said it was rigged, people didn't vote in Georgia, and then they gave the Senate to Democrats. There's videos of people outside polling stations saying, "What's the point of voting? I'm not going to vote. It's rigged." And then it's like, and then Warnock won, and Democrats got Senate.
I think it was a huge mistake by Republican strategists to encourage voting on election day. If you are able to vote in earlier, then you should, because weather could only screw you. Something new could always come up. And if those are the rules to play by, then play by the rules. So I think it's silly to do otherwise. I think they had a race in New York, too, where they had bad weather on election day. I don't know if that swung the race, but you never want that to even be a thought. So if you could get it done early, then play by the rules put forward. Don't put yourself in these arbitrary rules that the Democrats aren't playing by. I think it's silly. And yeah, to your point, Tim, I'm happy that you brought that up, because I think that did play a role in the runoff election after the fact, when the Republicans, this was right after the election where a lot of Republicans were saying it was stolen.
Yeah.
Also, they had Herschel Walker, so who knows if that was the right move per se. But
the Herschel Walker was not the right move, to be clear.
But either way, when you tell everybody it's rigged, a lot of people will stay home, and you are suppressing your own vote. Trump coming out now and saying we're doing the mail-in voting and it's become too big to rig. Now people are going to be like, oh, I better go out now because we're going to win. It's a weird thing, because you're scared that if you say we got this, then people don't show up. But if you say we can't win, people don't show up.
Yeah,
voter turnout is looking bad, by the way.
This is obviously a huge haul for the Trump campaign and all their super PACs. I'm sure Joe Biden's raising a ton of money. And yeah, money bears some influence on these campaigns, but I'm really questioning how much. Obviously, it's really good to raise a lot of money, better than not. But Trump is already president. I think both of these guys are at 99% name ID. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't have a formed opinion of Donald Trump or Joe Biden. So some more ads could help, but I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make.
It's not just ads, but if they actually put the money where they should with actual get out the vote
grassroots,
and back to the mail-in voting and making sure Republicans are actually doing these things, then the money really matters. And those are expensive things because they're people heavy.
The cynic in me just thinks, wow, it must be nice to be running these campaigns or being a third party that these people contract out to, because where do you think all this money is going to? It's going to those organizations. So hey, maybe we should open up a little, I don't know, campaign third party. Anyway,
I wonder how this will play out in the debate, honestly. Because I imagine it comes up. Trump's going to bring it up if CNN doesn't. He's going to say, a week after this guilty verdict, we brought in $400 million. What does that say about how the American people feel? What does Biden? How does Biden respond to that? It's just one guy.
Yeah. How does Biden respond to Trump calling his son a crackhead too? It's like,
well, I mean, he is.
Yeah. But how does Biden respond is the question. Because he's currently going through his case, the gun charge case, and then I feel like there's also the tax evasion case. So I hear Biden reportedly talks to Hunter every day. So I wonder if while he talks to him on the phone, he sounds a little bit more pepped up.
Hunter's a wild dude.
He really is.
Isn't it funny how like Hunter really does personify the left and Trump Jr. really does personify the right? Like Trump Jr. is this regular kind of dude. He's like a hardworking guy. His dad's rich, and he's like, you know, I always say this, like he's a plain guy. I no disrespect. I mean, as a compliment, he's just like Don Jr.'s just a guy. He's like a regular dude. You hung out with him, you wouldn't realize he was the son of Trump, the billionaire, and then you see Hunter, and it's like he personifies leftist degeneracy so well. Hunter
Biden's what all the anti-Trump people wish his children were, because if any of Trump's kids, which he has many more than Joe Biden does, were any sort of degenerates similar in any way to Hunter Biden, everybody would be all over them with no sympathy. Hunter Biden's getting a good amount of sympathy from Democrats, but I don't think if Don Jr. was a crackhead, he'd get any benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
well, of course.
Certainly.
I feel
wall-to-wall coverage.
If you walked into like an In-N-Out and Don Jr. was there ordering like a burger with animal-style fries or whatever, no one would know. Like no one would think twice. I mean, some people might recognize him, but I mean, like just in general, outside of his notoriety, it's just some dude ordering a burger. But Hunter Biden was there. His teeth are all messed. Like he got him fixed, obviously. But a guy like that, the scarf, the sunglasses, he's smoking. He was apparently smoking crack in public.
Yeah, like his gun falls out of his pocket on the floor. He has to pick it up, put it back.
He's an everyday crackhead smoking crack in public. That's how.
That's she described him, right? Smoking crack in public. That's what the testimony was. Was that the testimony?
I believe from his ex-wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that's a guy you're like, kids, stay away from that man. You know what I mean?
How does the pro-gun people in us feel about him getting this as a gun charge for lying about not being a drug addict? I think that's what this gun charge stemmed from, at least. You know, he said he wasn't addicted, wherein it was like the questionnaire to get a firearm.
I think he should not be charged for it. I think it is wrong that he's being charged. The Constitution does not say.
I agree.
Yeah.
The Second Amendment says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It doesn't say unless you're imbibing certain substances the government has deemed untoward. I don't like the idea that he's smoking crack and buying a gun. Don't get me wrong. I think if you were under the influence of crack at the time you are wielding a weapon, you should be charged, arrested, and your gun taken from you through due process. And after the due process, we can say you have surrendered your right to keep and bear arms. I didn't used to think this, but it was our good viewers who enlightened me. When I said, I don't understand why felons don't get to have guns. You did your time, and we had a super chat say, your rights can be curtailed through due process. That's the point. You have freedom of speech, you have freedom of movement, you have freedom of assembly, but if you commit a crime, we will lock you in a box. Your rights can only be deprived if you get due process. You know, that's a fair point. So if Hunter Biden is a crackhead and he buys a gun, I have no problem. He should be allowed to. However, and what I'm saying is you shouldn't bar someone from buying a gun just because they're a user of a substance that is illegal. That's a different crime. If they are guilty of the crime of possession and substance abuse and things, then we can process charge. And should we find them guilty, then you take their guns away. So there is an interesting a thin line here that's hard to know where the limit is. It is illegal to smoke crack, to buy crack, to possess crack. So if you're a crackhead, why should you be allowed to own a gun? Fair point. But if he was not inebriated at the time, I believe he would have to be charged and convicted for the crime of possessing, distributing, smoking, or otherwise, whatever the crime may be. Then he no longer can have a gun. And now, if he was wielding a gun while on crack, I think that's a very serious felony offense, and he should get some serious prison time.
That would be such a good headline. Principled gun rights supporter Tim Pool condemns gun charges against Hunter Biden.
It is an interesting argument, because if the argument is you can lose your right to keep and bear arms through due process, in whatever form that takes, then it's fair to say Hunter Biden, the question on the form was, are you an active committer of felonies? Because if you are not allowed to have a gun. The problem I have with that is it's preemptive. You've not yet been proven convicted of a crime for which you've gone through the process that we can deprive you of your rights.
Maybe Hunter Biden's just a libertarian after all. Tax evasion, smokes crack, loves guns. He should have spoken at the Libertarian National Convention.
I was about to say, based
not
on
RFK, not Trump.
They should have invited him. Yeah, what were they thinking?
Dates his brother's ex-wife.
And he cheered for him.
Hunter Biden.
I was about to say,
absolutely have cheered for him.
Yeah, based on the last convention, I think most libertarians are smoking crack at this point.
That'd be a nice pivot by Hunter Biden. Like, yeah, fuck it.
No.
A libertarian now.
The Mises Caucus Ron Paul libertarians have taken over the party, and they are of sound mind, but not of strong enough will to have prevented what happened at the convention. So
yeah, it's pretty embarrassing if you're a libertarian what happened at the convention. And honestly, what goes on was so much, and I'm very libertarian leaning. Like a lot of times I'll tell people I'm a very libertarian Republican in a lot of ways, but these people are making me not want to say that anymore because I don't know that people will understand what it means.
Guys don't want to say it.
You're right. That's what I'm saying. You're like,
I say we got him. We got him. Those Libertarian Party guys are voting for Trump now.
Yep.
Jeremy Kaufman, he held up a sign saying MAGA equals socialists at the convention. Then they nominate Chase Oliver, who's woke, and he was like, and then he tweets out, "I'm voting Trump." Like, dude,
I think it shows how vapid the sign is. Then, I mean, if he thinks Trump's a socialist, now he's going to be voting for him after that, and I don't know. It's just,
I think
all the libertarians are ridiculous in my opinion.
I think it shows priority. I think it shows priority. If your concern with Trump is that, yes, you like that he was somewhat anti-war, you like that he is for some things you like, but ultimately you think the bad outweighs the good, then your attitude is, I'm not voting for that guy. It's socialism. I mean, it's not, but they think government programs and things like that are. This just means that Jeremy views the wokeness as a greater or existential threat, and Donald Trump is at least resisting an existential threat. So there you go, Mises Caucus guys. But let's jump to the story from the Post-Millennial. Steve Bannon ordered to report to federal prison July 1st. Bannon said, "I stand with Trump and the Constitution." So Navarro's in prison. They put Trump's CFO in prison. Now Bannon's going to prison. Democrats have been jailing their political opposition for the past several years. I mean, you look at January 6th. That's an understatement. I mean, they're putting people in solitary. And then they're whinging online when we're like, I think we should investigate them too. They're like, oh, how dare you?
I think they're going to put that 10-year-old that cut the White House lawn's grass when Trump was president. They'll probably put him in jail too at this point.
Yeah, if Biden wins, they're going to be like, they're gonna culture revolution. They're gonna struggle session him. The kid's gonna come out and they're gonna be like, "Did you ever aid and abet President Donald Trump, the fascist?" And he's gonna go, "No." And they're like, "Is this you in the photo mowing the lawn for Trump?" And he's gonna be like, "Yes." And they're like, "So you lied."
Tim, can you intro this with the charges that they're bringing against Bannon? And
No, the charges have already been brought. It's contempt of Congress.
Yeah.
So Bannon was charged with contempt of Congress. I think this was 2021. No, I'm sorry. It was 2022. He was ordered to appear. I think it was 2021, right? He was ordered. Was it 21? I think it was.
I want to say it was 22, but I could be wrong about that.
I think he was convicted in 22. In 21, he was ordered to bring documents by October 7th and appear by the 14th. And what had happened was Trump asserted executive privilege, saying those documents are from the executive branch, and I assert privilege. You can't turn them over, which puts Bannon between a rock and a hard place. The legislative branch is saying do it or you go to jail. The executive branch is saying do it or you go to jail. And so his lawyers are like, you can't. You can't violate one branch for the other. Trump eventually said, it's fine. I waive privilege. Bannon, go ahead. Bannon then said, okay, now I'll do it. And they said, too late, too bad. We're arresting you and charging you with contempt of Congress.
I believe also it's uncommon for people to be charged with the contempt of Congress.
Only if you're a Republican.
Only if you're a Republican. So I don't know all the details, but I believe that it's uncommon to see these guys being charged with contempt of Congress.
I am glad.
I think it's 4 months, by the way, that he's being sent to
It is. Yeah. I'm glad I'm not a Republican because Republicans suck. Like, Democrats are evil and Republicans are stupid. You know what I mean? Weak.
It's weakness.
I know. Like, I'm so
many scared people.
I'm so jealous of the Democrats' just raw strength and stupidity. Like, they're just really dumb and running full speed ahead, bashing their head into things as they just destroy everything. And I'm like, can we get one guy who's going to like bang on the table a little bit or something? There's not a single DA or AG in any one of these states.
The DAs that has become a major focus. Like, we win in November, that's all great. But until we take back school boards and DAs offices, we're screwed. I mean, there's Soros DAs in South Georgia right now, which you used to not be able to say that. But anyway, there are. And these people are, I mean, we see what's going on in these cities, and to see the people that are running them. I mean, you just listen to someone like Fannie Willis talk, and that is the DA for the largest county in Georgia. It's scary.
Oh, well, I mean, her improprieties have resulted in the whole case against Trump being destroyed.
That's going to be fun.
Frozen at the very least. And then, of course, when Trump wins, it won't even matter. So sometimes, it's good that the Democrats are so dumb. But it's frustrating because the J6 committee clearly fake, and Republicans do nothing. They just, and I'm not saying
most Republicans in Congress hate the grassroots conservatives. They will lie to you on television. Yep. They will lie at their stupid events. They'll lie at the freaking picnic. They will lie to all these people nonstop, but they absolutely despise them. I've been around these people. I've heard how they speak about them, like what we got to do to satisfy the crazies. Well, I'm the crazy, you know. There are crazies out there, obviously, on both sides of the aisle, but the reality is the vast majority of people in Congress hate their base.
But the reality is it's none of us are crazy. We're regular Americans who want very normal things. You want your kids to grow up safe. That's something that humans have wanted and still want everywhere. But there are predators, and the predators are getting protected. You want your kids to eat food, and the prices are going up, inflation, the economy's in shambles. You want a place to live. Rates are getting are getting higher. It's becoming harder and harder to buy a home and start a family. These are the people supporting Trump are just like, I want to be left alone and just live a normal life. And they're saying, shut up, live in the pod, eat the bugs. That is crazy. There are a bunch of crazy people in government with extreme psychotic views telling you, regular human being who wants to eat and live and sleep, that you're crazy.
And they're called centrists.
Yeah.
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 Well, they call themselves that.
Everything you see going on right now in these areas is so Soviet. The way it's being handled, all these trials, the way you see the people that are defending people on New York subways, and they're the ones that are going to jail. It's very Soviet. And the thing is, these people are communists. And I know that might sound crazy to some, but it's not. The reality is these people, they're so far on the other side, there has to be a reckoning, because it used to be a time when we didn't let people be communists in this country. Now I know that could derail the conversation.
Well, the laws never changed, but the issue, I suppose, is weak men make hard times.
Yes.
Hard times make strong men. And so I think we're now very much so in some kind of fourth turning because of the weakness that we've seen from previous generations. And I'm not saying everyone from the past generations were weak. I'm saying there was an increase in weakness among men. And maybe it wasn't you, but the weakness increased. It's resulted in hard times. And now, if we're going to pull out of it, men must become strong. And I think they will. This is why people like strong men. It's why Donald Trump is doing well. I really do think that the highest probability outcome right now is Donald Trump wins, Democrats whinge. Donald Trump does a tepid job of installing certain personnel, but good enough to make some changes, and we feel partially sated by it. A couple of years go by with general economic improvements. Quality of life seems to stabilize. War probably starts to de-escalate a little bit in some areas. I think that is the highest probability outcome right now. And so times are hard right now. They are. But I think we're going to come out on the other side, and I think I think the highest likelihood is that we are seeing the worst of it. Really. I mean, we're looking at Trump's associates being arrested and charged. This is very, very bad. I think it will get worse, but I don't think the probability is on the side of it getting dramatically worse. I think there is a strong probability that so let me clarify what I'm saying. It may be 51% that Trump wins, and then things slowly start to simmer down a little bit. That still means there's 49% that we could have international conflict, civil conflict, total breakdown, gulags, whatever. It doesn't mean you're out of the woods yet. But I think we're on a good track right now. I think the failures of the Democratic Party, their constant flubs, the fact that people are recognizing the mental failures of Joe Biden, all indicate, especially these big corporations backing away from Pride Month and things like this. You've got, we're genuinely seeing a shift in culture. I think.
I absolutely think so. I'm still waiting for Bud Light to put out this year's Pride surprise. It would be helpful to our company. We're not going to do it. I know, I'm being sarcastic.
But I think come November, we're probably, I think we're going to be celebrating on November 6th.
I think we win. The biggest at that point is Trump has to surround himself by not the idiots that he surrounded himself in the past. And I think he's somewhere in between. I was worried for a while he had learned nothing about the people he put around him, but I do think there's signs that he has learned some of that. Now he's going to, probably go out and make, Nikki Haley VP or something.
Well,
everything I said will be
she won't
useless.
be VP.
I know. I'm being sarcastic.
Because if I ever admitted that, I'd have to give I'd have to donate to a charity of Will Chamberlain's choice. So, we're not doing that.
Is that
The Nikki Haley Foundation,
Yeah,
hopefully, will be Will Chamberlain's choice.
He tweeted a while ago that Trump would choose Nikki Haley as VP, and I responded, "There's no way that's happening." And he said, "Would you like to make a bet on it?" So, I think I offered the bet, and he said, "Give me 2-to-1 odds or something." He might have said 4-to-1, and I agreed. And I'm like, okay, if Nikki Haley is the VP, I will make a donation to a charity of your choosing. If she's not, then you'll make a donation to a charity of my choosing. He's already agreed to pay. Wow. Stand-up guy. But I said, no, we'll wait. Trump has to choose his VP before we can close this one out, and then we'll figure out what charity makes the most sense to help someone with, because it's not a real bet. It's mostly just for fun. But I don't think it will be Nikki Haley, but he will put her in the administration. She will be somewhere. I think he's already mentioned this. So I think Trump is going to disappoint but partially satiate many people.
Yeah.
I think the big disappointment that Trump will do this time around is the same one that he did last time. So in 2016, he was really running on building the wall. Illegal immigration and the border situation right now is completely untenable. It's gotten so bad that even I notice it in obnoxious ways in New York City. New York City is completely overrun, and the situation now compared to 5 years ago is completely different. You can't go 20 blocks in the city without seeing migrants piled up outside of a random building trying to look for any handouts that the government is giving. They're being kicked out of the homeless shelters as a result of it. There's some percentage of hotels in New York City are just there to house migrants now.
Well, it's 20%.
And the taxpayers are paying for it. It's completely untenable, the situation there. The city can't handle this. There's no long-term solution here because we will not be rounding them up and kicking them out. Does ICE even exist anymore? I think deportations are, I don't know what the numbers are, but in New York City, if it's a problem in New York City, I can only imagine what it looks like throughout the country. Trump didn't deal with this, I think, to a satisfying degree when he was president last time, and he's barely talking about a wall this time. His catchphrase was "build the wall." I don't hear about the wall at all anymore. Tell me.
Here's where there's a lot of things I'll happily jump on Trump about. Here's what I will say about building the wall and immigration. He was fighting his own party, all those people that the Republican base continue voting for every freaking primary. They were the ones trying to stop him from doing that. And they were the ones who were fighting it tooth and nail and always trying to tone him down from all of that. I mean, it was nonstop, and it's behind the scenes. It's out in the open, everything. He's always had to fight Republicans on doing the things that the base actually wanted.
I don't know if it's media scrutiny, especially on what's been happening at the border recently, but the situation is untenable. I believe Joe Biden just put forth an executive order, but I don't think we have a good solution to the border at all. The situation in Mexico is deteriorating, especially with the North. I don't want to have to deal militarily with the cartels. It does not seem like an organization we want to get involved against. And again, they're helping fund the fentanyl crisis in our country. I think we have big issues on the southern border that we don't even want to begin to address because of the Pandora's box that'll open up. Very troubling. I don't know what the solution is either. I don't know if there's enough of political will to do anything about it either, because once you start making a move, you're demonized endlessly. I think with one of Trump's policies where they were detaining people and then processing them and separating the parents while they were processing them, people were completely up in arms. There's no easy way to do this without being demonized to the nth degree. So
let's jump to this story from the Post-Millennial. Democratic opponent of Elise Stefanik suggests Trump supporters need re-education camps after the MAGA nightmare. Okay, well, certainly she didn't say that. What did she really say? Let's play this audio.
Really important in moving forward and moving through this, even if we were to have a resounding blue wave come through, as many of us would like, putting it all back together again after we've gone through this MAGA nightmare. And re-educating, basically, which that sounds like a rather a re-education camp. I don't think we really want to call it that. I'm sure we can find another way to phrase it. Anybody else care to talk about this?
Okay, so she did say that they need re-education camps, but she wants to soften the language. Yeah, they're talking about gulags. It was never really called, I think we were corrected on this one, it wasn't called a gulag. A gulag was the department. They were just prisons, but you get the point.
The problem is they already have re-education camps all across this country, including in the deepest red states, and it's called public schools.
Well, for re-education,
Well, they're educated,
like I get
whatever
it.
you want to call it. But
The implication, of course, though, is that you, as someone, a middle American working class person who's an adult with kids, they would have to send you to a camp to undergo the same thing children are undergoing now to align you with their fascist ideas. I think they're
sending the kids home to do that battle for them right now from school.
Well, and that's just indoctrination camp.
Right.
That's why you got to homeschool your kids.
On principle here, I don't disagree with her for the MAGA supporters part, but maybe re-education camp for some of the crazies or consistent criminals that we're seeing in different parts of the countries.
I mean, mental institutions.
Yeah, but we could call them re-education camps. That sounds like a nicer euphemism.
Than a mental institution.
Yeah.
I think we got to bring back mental institutions.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's a
But we could
huge
call them
mistake.
re-education camps if it gets...
Clean up the streets. They're filled with cases that could fill these mental institutions with people. Like, it's mind-numbing to me. Like, you go down to Atlanta, there's people just, like, on the street, like, putting needles in their arms. Like, literally, just out in the open and stuff.
Was it Reagan who got rid of him? Is that what it was?
That's a good question.
It was Reagan?
I believe so.
It was
The problem was there was some really horrific abuse that actually took place in a lot of these mental institutions, and that got exposed. And I think that probably changed the appetite for it. But
well, here's an idea.
One way or the other, we got to be somewhere
What
in the middle.
if we bring them back, and this time we don't allow journalists to go inside?
Geraldo's done.
I feel as though we do still have some mental institutions where people can be involuntarily admitted to, but I feel like they're not getting the right people and not keeping the wrong people for long enough. So I feel like the people who were writing tickets to and letting out immediately aren't concerned about their criminal rap sheet at all. So these are the people who won't care to get written up and sent places.
No, I think if you're pooping on the side of the road and doing needles, you go to the mental institution for quite some time. Now, I don't know how that's going to affect Biden after that. That wasn't a road stage.
I think Hunter Biden could run on that at the Libertarian convention. I think that would be popular for him.
I mean, look, someone like Hunter Biden who is driving, speeding, doing crack. I think it's fine to say at this point, you get committed.
Yeah.
Wasn't he actually doing crack in the car at one point in a video?
I'm pretty sure know. I think you are right. My point is simply like, if you get to the point where you're committing very serious crimes, I'm sure most conservatives would say something like, just lock you up in jail. But that clearly isn't solving the problem. Mental institutions, involuntary committal is probably a better approach for people who are suffering. Look, the idea of prison is our prisons are already broken. They're retribution. That we lock people in boxes because they're dangerous, and then we don't think about it. All you're doing is like if you get moldy food in the fridge and you're like, oh, I don't want this moldy food getting on my clean food, so I'm going to throw it in a box of moldy food with other moldy food. It's like, it's going to get real nasty in there. So we need to reform the prison system. Prisons should be rehabilitative, and they should be structured way better. They're not.
I don't think a lot of these criminals, I think many of them are beyond rehabilitation. That's the issue. Rehabilitation sounds nice on paper, and I want it to be true. I want the situation to be that we could rehabilitate criminals. However, overwhelmingly, when they get released, they commit again. Most of these worst people are reoffenders.
Right, but we don't have rehabilitative prisons.
I don't think there is a way to rehabilitate a lot of these gang members and a lot of these criminals who are going in. And unfortunately, a lot of these drug addicts, I think, are beyond rehabilitation, is the sad truth.
So might
be pessimistic.
Certain offenders, like sex offenders, you're not going to reform. But your typical criminal can easily be reformed. The issue is most people just don't want to do it. And the answer is, we've seen this with other countries. They take their worst offenders and they put them on desolate islands. And guess what? They reform instantly. When they have to dedicate their time to survival, they fall away from, like, recidivism drops way down, and then they start focusing on gathering wood and starting fires and what they
I don't know. Have you been to Atlanta? I'm pretty sure our people would just hit each other with the wood.
When they take the most violent offenders and then put them on empty islands with like a bare cabin with no electricity, all the crime stops.
That's violent offenders. I understand that. I think
so he's talking about gangs and criminals and murderers.
I feel like most criminals, maybe not for white collar crimes, but it's a blue collar crime.
Right. So the issue is there certainly are many crimes that you can't reform people on. But the issue is what we do now is like someone robs a liquor store and we go, we're going to lock you in a box and then set a time limit and then you can come out later. And it's like, well, that doesn't do anything. It's a temporary, it's shoveling it under a carpet. I say, and I have no problem with this is due process. If we're going to lock you in a prison, okay, well, we can use private islands. You're not leaving. You're going to have to fend for yourself.
When you say private islands, I guess we're not talking Rikers?
No. Like the problem with Rikers is
like
it's
a
just
Hawaii
a prison.
somewhere. Yeah.
Not Hawaii. I'm not talking about a paradise. I'm saying we're going to give you a space with the absolute bare minimum of supplies. And then you literally just do
Maybe
whatever
like
you
an
want.
Australia situation.
Too big.
Okay.
Too big of island.
Too big of
Small island. So instead of, and here's the best part is you don't need to build a massive prison complex. It's literally just like, good luck.
Are you just describing dropping all these people off at Epstein Island?
Too small.
Too small.
The idea
gotta be
is
just right.
Yeah, I was about to say.
the idea is depending on the degree of crime, you have excised yourself from society.
Yes.
And it would be also for a certain amount of time. I imagine the best way to do it is, because Scandinavian countries do this, and this is the model for many of these leftists. You get an island, you put a certain number of cabins on it. The cabins have the bare minimum. You say you are a violent offender. You get to go live with other violent offenders. Good luck.
I think our criminals are materially different from those in Scandinavia for whatever reason.
And we have a lot more of them.
And we have a lot
Yeah, right,
more of them for whatever reason.
But that doesn't change my point. My point is, I'm not going to spend $50 million in this massive prison complex.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on a boat, drop you off on an island with a cabin, and we'll give you just enough food periodically. But the food comes in a big crate, drops on the shore, and you guys figure it out.
So despite me being relatively pessimistic on the recidivism rate, I think it's interesting to look at and I think there's some valid prison reforms to be had. It's interesting to look at the progressive left and seeing what they're arguing for, because these guys are just saying abolish prisons for the most part. In New York City, they're just trying to close down Rikers, like not have an alternative. They're protesting new prisons being built without an alternative. And I think that's what leads to the even worse conditions at many of these prisons, at which they complain at the lack of quality of the prisons. Not that the prison should be very high quality, but it's like, let's not fund the prisons, let's not build new ones, and then let's complain about the horrible conditions in them to give an excuse to, I guess, plead down people because we won't have somewhere to send them, or try to get more people out early because of the conditions of them. So it seems just like an overall strategy to allow criminals to get out earlier and sooner and not
right, put them on an island.
Right. Better idea than.
So I'd say this. I think this is the perfect solution, to be honest. If you were convicted of a crime and they said we can lock you in prison for 5 years, or you go to an island where that's it. The island is you live there with other people, have fun. Which would you choose?
That one's kind of sounded nice to me.
I'd take the island.
Yeah.
Of course.
The reason why we see these behaviors drop is because it forces many of these people to figure out survival conditions, and it rewires their brain in a way they've not experienced before. We live in these cities where food's effectively free. And I mean it. You walk up to someone and say cheeseburger 10 times, go to Chicago, go to New York, go to LA. Walk up to 10 people and say cheeseburger. Someone will hand you a $5 bill and say, go get yourself a cheeseburger, buddy.
There's food kitchens all across New York City, in every borough, many of them at many different churches, and there are endless lines of new illegal immigrants constantly getting free food all the time.
In Seattle, they have food banks where I haven't been in Seattle in 15 years, but they had a food bank, a different one every day. And the people that I knew were like, Monday is this town, Tuesday is this town, Wednesday is this town. And they're all within like 15 minutes driving. So the kitchen was always stocked with free food. You'd walk in and you'd say, I am hungry. And they'd say, would you like a bag or would you like to choose? They would do this thing where they'd say, we have pre-made bags with a variety of items, or you can choose one protein, one grain, one fat, or whatever. And there was one, I think it was in, it might have been Ballard or Fremont, I'm not sure. It was a library with a bread wall. You could walk in at any point whenever, and there was a whole wall of free bread. Free, not expired. It was like within a day or two of expiring. So the local shops would replace it with the new order and then donate the other ones. You'd walk in and there's this huge rack, and I'm like, is this free? And they're like, take whatever you want. Because in Chicago, they padlock the dumpsters. And this is wild too. I think Krispy Kreme, I could be wrong. Krispy Kreme, when the day is done, take all the donuts, box them, and then neatly place them in the dumpster. And then in Chicago, people will walk up, pop the dumpster open, and lift up like 12 boxes, 12 dozen donuts, and then be like, let's roll. When I was a kid, we went to Burger King at like 11 a.m. when breakfast was over. We walked up, and there was a guy he had a garbage, and we were like, yo, wait, you're throwing those away? And he's like, you want them? And we're like, yes. And he gave us like 15 breakfast sandwiches or whatever. We were like, yes. So the issue with modern society is that there's no real struggle. And so for a lot of people, especially if they don't have dads.
Yes.
What is the motivator for status that men have? And if they don't have dads, they don't have a proper drive. They're not instructed properly. You get bonkers crimes that serve only the purpose of filling that void within these people. So, there was that viral video of the woman saying, like, it's the wrong thing. You shot the wrong guy. And it turned out that she wasn't even like with the guy for years or whatever. But Cernovich pointed out, she was saying, we need legislation to stop this. And he's like, murder's already illegal. These people aren't committing these crimes because they don't have a job. They're doing this. It's fun for them. It fills some desire, some need in them. You put them in prison, and what do? You surround them with other people who have the same drive, the same motivating factors. They're going hard. It's their status. It's like, I did this, I did that.
They just get better at it. They're a little more crafty by the time they leave.
And maybe, yes, a lot of it may just be they're entrenched in it. It's like giving someone who's addicted to cigarettes, locking them in a cigarette factory. You take them, you put them on an island, you remove them from any of those externalities and those factors, and now no one is saying, I go hard and I did this and I did that. They're saying, I'm hungry. And it's like, I'm cold. And the only thing they can think about is, so the studies that they've done on this, it rewires people into a basic survival scenario. And then what they found is many of the most violent offenders fall into routines of chopping wood, waking up, hunting, checking food traps, and I say this, depending on the severity of the crime, we put you on an island, you stay there. And if it's a life sentence, I'm not feeding you. That's not my problem. If you decide to violate the laws of this country to such a degree, and through due process, we decide, I think it is completely fair that we say you have forfeited your right to be a part of our society through your criminal violent actions. You are going to Island A36192, population 41.
I'm conflicted because whoever's in charge of the Justice Department gets to pick who they send there. So maybe we'd accidentally send Bannon over to Bum Island for 4 months accidentally.
I would rather go to an empty island with an opportunity for myself than a gulag where I break rocks for no reason. But my point isn't so much about, your political enemies weaponize the system. My point is literally, how about we stop spending money on the worst, most violent offenders and sustaining their lives so they can live in facilities that harden them and expand their proclivities? How about we just say, dude, you killed an old guy in a bank robbery. We're sending you to the island. What's the island? That's it. It's just, there's trees, there's fruit, there's animals, but you can't leave. And I think it works out for the best of us. We're breaking up with you. And then they can go off.
It could be like a Guantanamo Bay. That's what it could be like.
But Guantanamo Bay still is, you're locked down, you're forced to eat things. If you don't eat, they put a tube in your mouth. No. You get an island, maybe it's a couple square miles, enough for a human to survive on. We make sure there's this island can support 5 people, then 5 people live there. And if you can't get along, I don't care because you're bad people. That's your choice you've made.
Americans couldn't even handle separation of illegals at the border from their kids. I don't think we're going to get them there on the island. But
I agree. It's unfortunate.
I do have to address something, and this is important. I do not have sun poisoning. Yes, I realize I'm very red. I'm seeing a lot of comments in here. How red I am. I'm seeing a lot of lobster crab emojis there. Y'all are all hilarious. I've had a lot of vitamin B, and I also drove here in a convertible. So
nice.
Oh, you got burned up, huh?
I'm not that red. It's a little red.
It was a nice looking convertible.
It's a little red. Yeah, it is a great.
I think it's actually just the camera because you don't look red like in the room.
It's a lustrous tan in person. It's kind of like Biden. You just have to. It's great behind the scenes. You just can't see it on TV.
All right, it is time to address Star Wars because it's Thursday night and I want to. So Joel Berry has this great tweet, and it's a video originally posted by Nerdrotic. It's a scene from the new Star Wars show, which they are dubbing as the gayest Star Wars. I'm not kidding. And I'd like you to watch this quick clip, and then we'll talk about.
And that was the pressure valve. I got it.
So there's a woman in space, and she sees a fire in space, and she stares at it. And Joel Berry says, female Star Wars showrunners putting a crackling campfire in space is the kind of thing that happens when you get rid of mansplaining. I would agree. So the new Star Wars show apparently is super woke, abysmally bad, and it's getting roasted. The Post Millennial says Star Wars hires Harvey Weinstein's assistant to make, quote, gayest Star Wars ever. People have told me it's the gayest Star Wars, and frankly, I am into it. You know, part of me doesn't care because Star Wars is bad and has been bad for a long time. But there was another clip where the actress is talking to Trevor Noah, and she says making white people cry was kind of the point. I'm just kind of like, at what point does the money just stop? You know, like the socialism quote, socialism is great until you run out of other people's money. That's literally what we're seeing. Washington Post is on the verge of collapse. They just had a new editor come in saying, like, we've got to change things. Nobody reads what you guys write. And the response from the staff was, have you considered, I'm not kidding, have you considered hiring more black women? And like, they think that is a function of merit. Like, they think that machines can work based on the color of the skin and the gender of the person running the machine.
These people live in bubbles that is well outside the norm for most people in America, which is how they come up with these beliefs and thought patterns, if you want to call it that.
I think everybody on the new Star Wars show is gay too. Is that
real?
Wasn't it that in just the article before that you were skimming through?
Well, they're saying it's this one.
No, if you scroll down in that video, the caption? No, scroll up to that video.
This one.
Yeah.
They were just saying it's the gayest Star Wars ever.
Gayest Star Wars ever.
Dude,
I was never into Star Wars, so I don't know. Was it gay to
I've
begin
never
with?
even been able to finish the first one.
Yeah.
Same.
Well, the
a lot of
original
haters here, I'm sure, but
the original Star Wars are good movies, and they were revolutionary for their time. It's one of the they were very. I mean, we're talking about the 70s, and you're watching space battles.
Any gay characters back then?
No
gays.
And then what they're like, C-3PO is gay, and I'm like, C-3PO is a robot.
Gay robot.
He's not. He's a robot. He does not have. He does not have the capability of sexual reproduction.
Maybe it could be trans then.
These people are
non-binary,
obsessed, like Elad is, with the issue.
Non-binary robot.
See how obsessed he is. He just has to have his gay robot. But this is what they're doing, and so I'm kind of surprised to see that they did this to Star Wars, considering everything we've gone through with Bud Light, especially, and I mean, at a certain point, like these companies have to realize this stuff doesn't work, right?
Yeah, but again, there's such bubbles that I think they convince themselves otherwise, or they're going to cocktail parties afterwards and they're getting patted on the back, just like that sit down interview you're seeing there, and told how great and bold and beautiful and brave they are, that they can't let go.
Yeah,
of
who
that.
did this interview? What is this? The Rap? Come on, The Rap. What are you guys doing?
See, this is why I'm more of a Jetsons person.
Someone needs but I'm totally fine with, like, Washington Post is about to go out of business. They are suffering. And so these legacy media institutions will not be able to do these interviews anymore. And then they're going to put out a new Star Wars, and then their PR person is going to be like, yeah, there's no big press outlet to go with. They're going to be like, I
don't know that we ever lose those types of institutions. Like, I feel like, BlackRock or someone will say
Jeff Bezos bought WAPO and it's collapsing.
Right, but is he going to actually let it collapse and go out of business?
No. The point is,
I don't think so.
Is he going to let himself bleed $100 million a year in cash? Like the even if you are ideologically driven, you need some kind of sustainability.
Right.
You have to think like, I'm going to start a business. I don't expect it to be profitable. Here's how much I can withstand to lose, but it's got to make some money back. Otherwise, it will collapse.
Right.
Like Bezos,
or it's just a passion project, and you're just trying to get the message out there and make everybody gay.
There is no amount of wealth on the planet right now that could sustain. Well, I take that back.
I think you could do $100 million a year.
I feel like there's a lot of very rich liberal donors who don't care if their donations or nonprofits or whatever they contribute make any money, so long as they're advancing whatever LGBTQ or open borders agenda.
But $100 million a year.
Do you think George Soros cares?
So the issue
No, he'd
is,
rather his money be more effective, like electing DAs.
Yeah,
So,
but even if they lose, he's just like, what? I'm sure he's not.
So I don't think that's possible. Like Bezos, sure, he's worth $100 billion or whatever, but having to constantly sell stock in Amazon when he's legally able to do so because he's restricted in order to fund the failing Washington Post, I don't think can be done for a very long time.
I don't think he wants to run the Washington Post as I don't think the purpose of acquiring the Washington Post was to make money. It was always just for him to have that
influence,
fake influence over them, which they would deny.
And now the issue is no one's reading it. Yeah. So he does not have what he bought, which means he's burning money and not getting the influence he tried to buy. So he's likely going to go to his editors and say, I want influence. I want views. Why aren't we getting it? And they go, oh, because the woke stuff nobody wants to read. He's going to be like, well, make people read stuff. Make the stuff they'll read. All that really matters is We average 1 million hits per article, make the articles people want, so then when I need to write an article talking about how great I am, I can, and they'll read it. But if the company is losing half its audience and bleeding money, he basically bought a garbage can.
I think the agreement with Bezos and the Washington Post is with a wink and a nod, and don't write any articles or investigate me, and maybe investigate Musk and all my other rich buddies, but not me. Keep me closer.
But then the company collapses, so what was the point of buying it in the first place?
I mean, it'll exist. Just
could have bought it and liquidated
as a shame of a hollow, empty shell of its former self. And like, I think they're still winning Pulitzers. I don't know. It depends on what you're measuring there.
The fact they brought in a guy who said, I'm bringing in more people and we're turning things around shows that there is a crisis panic moment happening in Washington Post, and they do not live in that world.
Have they tried hiring more black people? Black women?
That's what the staff asked them. And they're like, are you nuts? And they're like, well, maybe try doing that. And then one of the staffers said, I couldn't help but notice the people you're hiring are white men. And he said, I'm bringing on people that I know have the experience to turn this around and have succeeded in the past. But this is what you get. I love the Vice story where that guy, what was his name? I think it was like Brian Moynihan or whatever, was saying that Vice hired these woke millennials who started demanding that Vice eliminate their own history. They had a wall of all their magazine covers, and they were like, take them all down. And the Vice staff were like, the heads of Vice, the guys who founded it were like, well, okay, I guess. And they took down their own history. Like,
what was the purpose? I missed.
So Vice magazine.
Right, I'm saying, why did they want to take them down?
Because they were offensive. Because Vice was edgy.
Oh, back when they were, yeah.
But Vice,
they were founded on white supremacy with.
Well, it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right?
Yeah, Gavin. They were founded on white supremacy.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And so they had a bunch of edgy magazine covers. And the woke millennials said, we want them gone or else. And they said, deal. Got rid of them. Dude, if you invite people into your company and they say, change everything about your company, and they eviscerate it in the literal sense, disembowel it, you're not the company anymore. You've given everything up. And so Star Wars is a great example. Star Wars has been a Weekend at Bernie situation for 10 years now or longer? And there are people who just don't want to let go, but it is garbage. And Star Trek is not getting any favors from me either. Star Trek is gone pretty bad as well. But Picard's okay. They fixed it a little bit. Picard had a season where they go back in time because Donald Trump is a fascist who turns. I'm not kidding. Something happened where I'm not kidding. Trump wins, and then the Federation becomes an empire. And they're like, we have to go back in time and stop this from happening. I didn't watch it.
This is why you should just watch the Jetsons. It's got all your sci-fi needs right there.
There's a really funny show right now called Evil. Have you guys heard of it? Mm-mm. It's on Netflix. I don't know. I think it's like a CBS show or something. But it's about this psychologist. I think she's a psychologist. And she works for a law firm. And then something happens where some guy claims he's possessed. And she ends up meeting a priest. She ends up doubting whether he's actually suffering from a mental episode or whether or not he's possessed. So she gets fired. But the story is basically a priest. The church hires them to investigate situations that may be miracles or paranormal of the church's interest, usually to debunk them so the church can claim this is not. But the show is amazingly and obviously woke. Her husband is missing. He's off gallivanting about climbing, leaving her behind. I don't know if this changes later on in later seasons, but all of the, it's just in one episode, they think that a woman comes back to life. It's a miracle. And then it turns out it wasn't a miracle. Do you know why the woman came back to life? It's because she was a black woman. And the doctors weren't performing CPR on black women at the same degree as the white women.
That's great.
I love these people.
They called her time of death. Yes, they called her time of death a half an hour early. And then when they went to do the autopsy, they took the blade to her face and she woke up because she was alive the whole time. And they were like, it's a miracle. She's come back to life. And they're like, how did this happen? And then the resolution is one of the main characters who is a black actor. He's like, it's because you were racist. And then he slams documents on the table and he's like, you perform 58 minutes of chest compressions on white people versus 23 on black people. And if you had done the chest compressions, she would have been okay. And he's like, how dare you? You get out of my office. And I was just like, oh my God.
So it's kind of like Law and Order. If you look at the really old Law and Order episodes, they're out fighting real crime and everything. But now it's we have a hate crime to look into today. And they're like, what happened? So there's a Pride sidewalk. And this 18-year-old child did donuts on it.
It's actually
a felony now.
That's a good idea for a bit. It would be
that would be a great
woke
bit,
Law and Order.
Absolutely. It's kind of the show now, but yeah, we could make it a little funnier.
So it starts You know, they always do the cold open where like someone discovers a body.
Yep. I think they discovered the Pride Walk with the tire tracks.
That's a good one. Another good one is like a woman is like, you know, like a non-binary person. Let's just say that, you know, purple hair, shaved head, is walking. It's always a really, really drawn out, suspenseful cold open. So she's walking up to, she got a bag of groceries or I'm sorry, they have a bag of groceries. They open the door and then their neighbor is checking the mail and it's like, hey, Sam. And Sam is like, hey, how's it going? How was the family? He's like, it's doing pretty good. You have a good day at work? Yeah, I had a good day. And Sam walks upstairs, opens the door, and then drops the groceries and goes, oh my God. And then it shows another person with purple hair and a shaved head just sitting there, but crying, and looks up and goes, I was called sir. And then it goes, dun dun, and like, that's the crime. And then the whole episode is basically investigating, like, who was the person who misgendered.
But Jordan Peterson has to be at some point put on stand to talk about it.
Well, it would clearly.
It's an awful crime.
It's clear that the villain is based on Jordan Peterson. He's called Dr. Peter Jordanson.
Yeah.
And the crime will like ultimately you learn, like after the investigation, that it shows what happened, and it's Dr. Peter Jordanson walking down the street, and then the person's walking by and he goes, how do you do, sir? And that's it. And the guy's like, and then the judge sentences him to 25 years on an island. To the island.
Aren't they actually sentencing people for this kind of thing in, is it England
Canada.
now or Canada? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in England too.
Crap. Yeah, I think both of them. Like people have actually been like arrested, I believe, or at least fined.
There was a video of a guy in the UK, and he's like complaining about one of the police cars has got a pride flag on it, and he's like, "Yo, what the f, man? Why are we paying for this? These taxes?" And the cop's like, "Hey, you might want to be careful about that." And he's like, "What do you mean be careful?" And he's like, you know, everyone's got the right to opinion, but you know, if an LGBT person hears you, it's a hate crime. And he's like, "Are you what?" And like that? Yes, it is. Yeah, hate crime. Your opinions are naughty, not allowed.
Well, fortunately, we got the U.S. military pushing trans flags in all their social media accounts.
The embassies.
Drag queen shows, too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, head over to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member, and we're going to have that uncensored members-only call-in show coming up for you at 10 p.m., so it's about a half an hour. And as a member, you are supporting the show. We could use your support. This is how we run everything. It's basically all members. We do have sponsorships, and we're probably going to do more sponsorships because, we got to pay the bills. But you can also become a member to support us. Let's read some Super Chats. We got Kyle who says, down 35 pounds in the past year.
Nice.
50 since my heaviest. Intermittent fasting and reducing sugar and alcohol has helped the most. Still got 15 pounds to reach my goal. Thanks for the extra motivation, Tim and crew. Here, good sir.
Love
Respect. You know, I'm deeply inspired by the D-Day story, the imagery. And a point that I've made 3 times now today, and I will make for all of you, is whenever you feel like it's too hard and you can't accomplish whatever it is you're supposed to do, I don't tell me. I don't care about your excuses. Go to Arlington Cemetery, take a look at all of those grave sites, and tell them why the push-ups were too hard for you, why not eating healthier was too hard for you. Tell them. The brave men who died literally ended their lives believing that it was the right thing to do so that you could have all of the opportunities that they were sacrificing. And then there are people who are literally like, well, I tried to do the push-ups, but it was too hard. I'll tell you what's hard. Storming the beaches of Normandy. I look at that and I'm like, wow, everything else is easy. It is because of these brave men and women that I can be a moron on the internet complaining about things while they are actually taking the risks, and many of them becoming injured, and our government letting them down every day. The one thing I will always shout out Jon Stewart for is how hard he fought for the 9/11 first responders, because we should have given those people infinite money. I don't care. Anybody who was there on the ground, 9/11, working to save anybody, I cannot believe it. It is a disgrace that this country didn't just say, the federal government should have had no problem to say, I will write a blank check for the medical bills for any one of you, anyone. And that goes for the brave men and women in uniform who serve this country. There should be no question when they need medical treatment that we all agree to sign the check for their bills. If there's one thing I would gladly give up all of my tax money for, it is paying the medical bills of those who were injured in combat or accidents or otherwise serving us so that we can be morons whinging on the internet. And instead, I hear too many stories about how they're not paying the medical bills, about how many of these people who get out with injuries or disability aren't getting the funding they need. Too many stories about homeless veterans. And then I hear about, the stories like 9/11. I think it's absolutely disgusting. Nancy Pelosi becoming a millionaire, buying NVIDIA stock and all this other garbage. And we can't make sure that the best of us are getting taken care of and getting what they need. I think we should write a check for $1 million to each and every one of those 9/11 first responders and say, you and your family are going to be taken care of and you have nothing to worry about because you are the greatest this country has to offer. Anyway, let's read more Super Chats. It's D-Day, man. It's got me all fired up. We're just a bunch of morons sitting around with our thumbs up our butts complaining while other people do the real work.
First job I had was at a hardware store with a man, Jack Lockett, long gone, was on D-Day, Iwo Jima, storming the beaches. He never really talked about it except for one time. And I couldn't possibly try to tell the whole story and everything now, just listening to him describe it. I was, I think, 15 or 16 then. I still remember that very vividly.
Wow. You know what, man? Hard times make strong men. And if things really, really ignites, if things really ignite into great conflict and war, maybe then the current generations that exist in America might truly understand what it means to have to sacrifice. But too many people are detached from what the veterans on D-Day gave to us and did for us. This world would be dramatically different if we were not involved in World War II. And there are certainly a lot of people that were anti-intervention, didn't like the idea of American being involved. But even outside of World War II, you've got a lot of conflicts that have happened over a long period of time. I'm not a fan of the U.S. just getting itself involved in wars and false flags and all these things, but I never blame the troops for what the evil elements of liberal economic order are doing. The people who are willing to lay down their lives truly hoping that what they're doing is going to make the world a better place for the people back home, those are the people who deserve everything. Let's go.
Said well, Tim.
All right. Patriot Punk Network says, please give a shout out to the Patriot Punk Network in Tennessee. They cover local corruption all across the state. Just Google Patriot Punk Network. Right on. That sounds cool. Dick Dickerson says, when's Ian coming back? I think next week.
Where is Ian?
He's in Florida doing Ian stuff.
It's a good place to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's writing music and I don't know. He just felt like going down. OMG Puppy says, Biden is a senile mess. But the poop pants story is totally fake. The ceremony went on normally for a long time after that. He walked out with Macron greeting the vets. RNC Research made a RuPaR vid. I disagree. The purpose of diapers is so that a person who poops their pants doesn't have to immediately then go to the bathroom. I do agree, and I did point this out in my earlier video, the video claiming that he left early and was shuffled out by Jill. I did say it's likely there's more to it. He for all we know, he probably did greet many of the vets already, and they're just leaving. However, he does leave rather abruptly once it wraps up. My point is, I think the possibility that an 81-year-old man had an accident is very, very much within the realm of possibility. I don't know what odds you give it, but please give me any other explanation for the squatting that he was doing and the grimace that he had in his face. I'm sorry, like an 81-year-old man. I looked it up. 30% of people over 80 wear diapers because they suffer fecal incontinence. Biden has already been accused, I think, on 2 different occasions of having soiled himself. Trump has even accused him of soiling himself at the Resolute desk. Okay, so my view is kind of like this. We don't know for sure if he really did soil himself. Fine. But I don't think people are all just coming to this conclusion based on nothing. When I woke up and I saw that video, I thought to myself, I'm like, it looks like he's having an episode right now. It really does. And then I noticed a bunch of other people had already tweeted a lot of the same thing. They were like, a lot of the tweets were like, anybody who's got a toddler knows what that is. Anybody who's had to deal with kids, they know that when like you lose focus, they look down and they just do that crouch and that grimace. You're like, I know what's going on. I've seen this before. A lot of people pointed that out. Does it mean we know for a fact that he did it? No. Someone says he was caught on hot mic telling Macron his team was going to get him out early. I wonder if that's true. I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying, like, dude, if you went to your neighbor and you were like, yeah, my 81-year-old grandpa was over there and You know, he was standing around during the birthday party and then he squatted down and he made a grimace and he got up and then, you know, they'd be like, oh no. They would know exactly what you were implying. They'd be like, yeah, Grandpa had to leave early. Why? Well, he was standing there and he gets down a little bit, grimaces a little bit, and they're like, oh no. Well, was he wearing a diaper? And you'd be like, he was. So, you know, it wasn't that bad, but we got him out, got him cleaned up.
Can you imagine 10 years ago if someone told you, hey, on the year of the presidential election, one of the big stories you're going to be talking about is whether or not the president of the United States has publicly pooped himself on multiple occasions.
I think it's like 4 times he's been accused. There was the Pope one, there's this one, there's the Resolute Desk, and then there was another one where he changed his clothes. I don't remember what that one was. But there was some story where it's like he went to a meeting and then he came out wearing a different suit later on. And people were like, did he soil himself? But Trump. So this is the funny thing. When Trump claimed that he said he soiled the Resolute Desk, he's like, it's been soiled, and I mean it literally. This is why I believe it's very likely that Biden does poop himself. The media comes out with the most extreme interpretation of what Trump said. Trump said, it's a beautiful desk. I might not use it because it's been soiled, and I mean that literally. What does that imply? It implies that Joe Biden sitting at the Resolute Desk had an accident, which is, I think, in the realm of possibility. A 5% chance. So what if there's a 5% chance that he poops himself? 1 in every 20 days, he might have an episode. How many of those days are spent at the Resolute Desk? Seems very likely, actually. The media reported Trump claims Joe Biden defecated on top of the Resolute Desk. Trump never said that. But they have to make the most extreme interpretation so that people doubt the story. When the reality is Trump said that Biden soiled it. Like he's sitting in the chair and he goes, whoops. Which for an 81-year-old man is not out of the question. Again, I don't know, but it's possible.
There's 20% of men above the age of 80, did you say?
So to be fair, ChatGPT said 26 to 31% of people over 80 wear diapers because they suffer from fecal incontinence or incontinence.
I believe it's higher for gay men as well.
Yeah. So the fecal incontinence is very high.
I've been seeing a lot of that on X lately. Yeah.
Because of a muscle weakness
right.
as you get older. And that's why, this is why adult diapers exist. And I don't mean to disrespect the elderly who have to wear them. Everybody's going to go through this. You, dear listener, dear viewer, who is making fun of Joe Biden, just understand there will come a day when you are going to be wearing that diaper too, and you're going to poop your pants. I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying it as a point of reality. And there are people who want to present these explanations to explain it away. Is it possible he was trying to sit down? Sure. Is it possible he was looking at a turtle or a frog or something on the stage? Sure, I guess. I don't know. What is the simple answer here? An 81-year-old man grimaces and squats and then gets up and then squats again. He's been accused of pooping his pants on numerous occasions. I would say if you were to list out all the possibilities of what it was, the real simple explanation is Grampy had a boom boom.
You know what I mean? I will say the vets did make him look a little bit young, so it was nice to have them behind.
Yeah, I noticed
him.
that.
That was set up very nicely. So shout out to the greatest generation.
All right. Firearm says, love your show, but come on, man, play the whole video of Biden. Like 3 seconds later, they all 4 sit down. Right. Okay. Like still, my point is they're all standing for Lloyd Austin. Then Biden does this squat thing. Sure. Fine. He wasn't able to stand. He was having a hard time. That's fine too. That is within the realm of possibility. And then we contend with a president who struggles to stand up when they're announcing the Lloyd Austin. That's fine too. I just think it's silly to be like, no, it's wrong. He didn't do it. Maybe he did. I don't know. All right. Well, let's go. Let's grab another super chat. There was one I wanted to see. What do we got here? Someone's asking about the P.O. Box. I was looking for one that was really good. All right. That one gamer says, Elad, if I gave you a rock and tell you to break a window, then I had involvement. Stop dancing around the obvious.
Yeah.
I think we are involved. And I think we're involved in the right way that we should be.
Wait, you think we should be involved in Ukraine with what we're doing right now?
I think, yeah.
Tell me we had a libtard in this thing.
No,
he's a neocon.
Prior
yeah.
warning.
He's a
resident neocon.
He's a neocon.
Yeah,
Bolton bro.
I feel like we needed some representation on the show. So.
All right, the Authentic Hydro PX says,
a token.
Tim, can you ask ChatGPT, can you describe the movement of someone experiencing fecal incontinence while standing up? Pretty uncanny results, not gonna lie. You know, I did that. And it says that they'll squat down, push their thighs together, but it's a vague description, to be honest. But it's this is why people thought Biden was pooping.
There's no way at some point in the next few weeks there's not going to be a Timcast video where they recreate the scenario and have someone poop their pants in a diaper to show exactly what would have happened. I feel like this is coming at some point. I don't want to be involved in that one, but I would watch the video.
All right. The Emperor's Champion says Russia has been threatening retaliation the entire time, and NATO keeps ignoring the threats, and Russia continues to do nothing, which emboldens NATO to go further. So why no retaliation in 2 years? Because Russia's winning. Russia is winning handily, and Ukraine is drafting elderly and women. So Russia does not need to. The reason NATO is escalating is because they're losing. And Russia doesn't need to go after NATO because they're winning.
I've heard commentators say that they lost a long time ago.
Oh, yes.
There is no war. No, there is no war happening.
When you draft the elderly and women, everyone can plainly see that you're losing.
But even at the beginning, the idea that that Ukraine could win a war against Russia is like, I'm going to be a star NFL player at my age right now. Like, that's not going to happen. It was never going to happen. Russia's insane.
Russia's initial war aims were not met. If it was up to Russia,
what were their war aims?
To completely take over Ukraine. They made a drive to Kiev, although Putin said it was a feint. It was unsuccessful. And then I think Putin has repeatedly tried to kill Zelensky to no avail. So, I mean, if this is a successful Russian operation...
You made that up.
What?
Russia's goals?
No. They definitely tried to, at the beginning of the war, they tried to take over Kiev.
Why?
They wanted the whole country. I think if it were up to Russia, you think they only wanted the Donbass? That's what they settled for. In my understanding of it, they went for Kyiv, and then they tried to assassinate Zelensky.
Is Nikki Haley your godmother?
I think the reality.
Wait. No. That is the reality. You don't think Russia would keep pushing in?
I think that's the neocon lie to justify why we're funding
100%.
Ukraine.
Because
the reality
very smart
is
people told them that
the strategic value of Ukraine to Russia is the port, the warm water port in Crimea.
Well, they already had that in 2014,
which is why they annexed it. But then there's all they have is the Crimean bridge to get access to it. So being cut off. If that bridge is taken out very easily, and we've already seen that it can be, Russia is screwed and has no access to their seaport, their naval base in the Black Sea, which cuts them off from the Mediterranean.
You think Putin's ambition is only the Donbass then? You don't think he has further ambition into Ukraine?
No. I think
it's totally.
But that's.
I think what you're looking at is, if I'm going to, it's called the big ask. I need a land bridge into Crimea to secure my ability to distribute energy that we sell to North Africa and Europe from the Black Sea into the Mediterranean. And not just energy, but all of our exports. If Russia gets cut off from Crimea because the Crimean bridge was already targeted, very easily destroyed, they have no access to that port. They need that land strip. You are not going to focus all of your forces in one area in a war. The obvious reason they attacked from the north through Belarus and are targeting Kharkiv is to split the Ukrainian and NATO forces, forcing them to defend other territories, while Russia rather successfully secured the Donbass.
I think he settled for the Donbass goal. I think if it were up to Putin, he would prefer regime change totally. He wouldn't want Zelensky in power at all, and he's not met those war aims. So I don't think this is a total Russian victory.
I think what you're saying
nearly.
What is the goal of Russia? Secure land access to Crimea.
No, that was the compromise and settlement. I think if you're Russia, you want an ally.
Right. So now I'll finish
change on your border.
What is Russia's strategic goal? Secure a land bridge into Crimea so they can't be cut off. What is their strategy in making sure that happens? Expansive conflict from the north, targeting Kharkiv, Kiev, and even engaging in terror campaigns into the far west, places like Luhansk, and even targeting Odessa, forcing Ukrainian forces to be split, spreading chaos, and then allowing you to do exactly what their strategic goal was and secure the Donbass. There's a reason why Russia retreated from Kiev when they could have easily taken it.
No, because I believe it was because they were unsuccessful. I think the Russian war aims was to make Ukraine look like Belarus, and they were unsuccessful in that. That's not to say they were unsuccessful in any of their war aims, but I don't think it's a clear and obvious Ukrainian victory, Russian victory, especially given the casualties.
What's the strategic value of Kiev?
Well, it's more than just strategy. I believe in Putin's eyes. No, I don't think it's strictly based on strategy in Putin's eyes. I think Putin is an irredentist, and he wants to go back to the Russian Federation. And he believes that the falling of the Soviet Union, the dissolution of the Soviet Union, was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe. So he wants to piece together as much of the Soviet Union as he can, and Ukraine was part of that. So it's not just the strategic interest; it's the ideological one.
So what you're talking about is, we need a land bridge to Donbass. If we can claim more while we're at it, sure, but then Russia doesn't allocate resources to taking Kiev.
No, he did allocate resources to taking Kiev. And if he were more successful,
they attacked from the north and then gave up.
No, they were repelled. I think if they had more success trying to invade Kiev, I think they would have kept going. No, like obviously,
Ukraine is in a position where they have to draft the elderly and women, and you think Russia could not take Kiev?
I think Russia would take Kiev if they can. Yeah, totally, definitely.
Russia could flatten Kiev in a day if they wanted to, and march in and rule over the rubble if they really wanted regime change.
I think, if they were to navigate their economy into a total war situation, which they don't want to do. If they want to start drafting, I don't think Russia's not in a total war situation.
They're drafting already.
They're not drafting. They're drafting, but they're not drafting like a majority of their population. They're not drafting from the center of Russia. No. Russia is not in a total war. Their society isn't oriented towards waging war against Ukraine in the same way that
there's girls in Ukraine doing TikTok videos, so maybe they're not in a total war situation.
Ukraine is obviously more of a total war situation, but Russia isn't. Russia isn't desperate.
Russia could carpet bomb Kiev and walk in.
I think they would have to there would be more consequences for the average Russian citizen. But I think the big picture here is that Russia wants more of Ukraine, and if they had more success doing it, they would have taken it. Look, their ambition was not just the Crimean Bridge.
Believing the neocon narrative of Russian expansionism is an excuse to convince Americans to support a war we should not be involved in.
My question is, who has told you all of these things that make you believe this?
Putin. Vladimir Putin has said this. Okay, Vladimir Putin.
I don't think he's ever said that.
Vladimir Putin believes. Vladimir Putin believes.
But we're also not supposed to trust anything Vladimir Putin says. But these more sound like talking points from D.C.
Okay, so no, I'm looking at history. So Vladimir Putin took a chunk of Ukraine in 2014. In 2020, he's taken another chunk. So I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to take.
What chunk did he take?
Crimea.
And then?
The Crimean Bridge or the Donbass.
And that's it, huh?
I think history will tell that he will keep going, and his ambition, all of Ukraine, he wants on his border.
See what you're doing.
He wants another Belarus.
I can point to
Ukraine.
Clear economic incentives, physical locations, and strategic reasons, and you're saying, yeah, but he's also just an expansionist who wants this thing. Well, if you want to read his mind and speculate as to his intents and motivations, fine. I'm going on evidence. And the evidence is Russia's got their only warm water port. Their access to the Mediterranean and the Black Sea is only Crimea. The Crimean Bridge is a severe military vulnerability, and they needed land access. When they went to war, why? So you say
I can make the strategic argument for taking more of Ukraine. You want a larger buffer against NATO. That's what you don't want. And
why didn't they invade Estonia and Latvia?
Because they're in NATO.
So Ukraine, which is funded, armed, supplied, and trained by NATO and is active.
Well,
NATO presence,
not as much. They're a non-NATO.
Russia's
ally,
going.
I believe, was the
NATO's backing Ukraine, but they're going to let us attack them. We can't go into Estonia or Latvia.
They're NATO backed, but not a NATO ally. And Estonia and Latvia are. I believe if they weren't, though, that Putin would definitely come in, which is why I think NATO is an important partnership that we have. It's an important
I think your view is based on the neocon lie to convince Americans to support our funding of Ukraine so that we can secure our energy interests in Eastern Europe and connecting it to the Middle East. And Russia is trying to do very much the same thing. And their concern is economic exchange in the Mediterranean and Black Sea.
I think the more successful that Russia is in Ukraine, the more frequently they will continue to push westward, which is historically what the Russians have did. And I think the best way to honor the greatest generation that ever lived 80 years ago is to maintain peace in Europe now with the soldiers there, so we don't have to go clean up the Europeans' mess again.
Meaning fight a war for a corrupt government.
I mean, I feel like that's what you could have said.
I mean,
that's what you could have said during World War II. Yeah,
you can say you can make that argument during World War II.
Yeah, no, you could.
About that.
No, I mean, Seth, that's what we'd hear, by the way, back in the day. From
so what?
From anti-interventionists.
Yeah, totally.
What I'm saying is, what is the purpose? Let's forget past things. What would be the purpose of America involving ourselves in this? What is the purpose? Like, by the way, why don't we involve ourselves in all kinds of other stuff? But why? What is the? I know, and I don't think we should. But I'm saying, why
need to
should
invade
we
China.
involve?
I agree with a lot.
I don't think we shouldn't invade China.
China's expanding.
Actually, they cause more harm to us than Ukraine ever will.
No. I want to defend Taiwan.
China is sinking Vietnamese fishing ships, claiming the South China Sea is all of their territory despite international boundaries. They're building naval bases on atolls. They're crafting islands to put military and aircraft in the ocean to use as bases They've been sending ships off of our coast, Alaska and Hawaii, and they've got concentration camps full of Uyghur Muslims that they rape and give forced abortions to while they try and seize territory and are in active conflict in the Western territories. You want to make all these arguments about honoring the greatest generation. You're forgetting the Pacific Theater. We must invade China, just like let's go to Taiwan.
Defend Taiwan against
No.
China.
We're gonna give Taiwan rockets, long-range rockets to fire into mainland China because China's launching sorties over Taiwan. And to prevent that, look, China's getting ready to attack Taiwan, right? Like you said, we should arm up Taiwan to the teeth, give them rockets, and they should attack China before China attacks them.
I think yes, until Taiwan attacks first. I think yeah, because that is deterrence against China, knowing that if they do invade Taiwan, there will be a large price to pay and they will be unsuccessful.
Okay,
because that's what deters China. Because as soon as China thinks they could successfully take over Taiwan, they will.
Or here's an idea: we don't get involved in any of it.
Yeah, but until shit really hits the fan, and then we have to go D-Day again.
Yeah, no.
Until it comes home to roost. Until we get attacked in Hawaii. I got
an idea.
Until Great Britain. Until Great Britain is the only ally left.
I have an idea. Guys, hear me out. Donald Trump gets elected, right? I propose we send Trump to the telephone to call Vladimir Putin and say, "Putin, you can have all of Ukraine. Have a nice day. Bye." Click. And then Putin says, "Aha! Now I have Ukraine." And then I go, "And what? What does that have to do with me? Why do I care?"
Democracy is at stake.
Who cares? Who cares? Vladimir Putin could march into Kiev and fly a Russian flag for all I care. And I go, look at that thing happening halfway across the world, 8,000 miles away. That's a thing.
Oh, he would become very presidential on that day.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's grab some more super chats. Cardia says, Tim, did you see David Pakman on Piers Morgan today, genuinely arguing that Biden is in great mental health and that Trump is the one with severe mental decline? I was flummoxed. Well, if you know anything about David Pakman, you wouldn't be. The dude is clearly just saying these things. Like, David Pakman probably wakes up and says, how can I pretend to be, how can I bolster Democrat lies and make money today? That's it.
Yeah, it's a lot of those young influencer types who are out there just saying he's not senile.
Who is David Pakman? I'm trying to find.
Pakman.
He's like a liberal commentator, a Democrat commentator writ large.
Yeah. Got a decent audience. He's really good at just cherry picking news to make it seem like Democrats are great and doing good things.
I'd say he's a lib, not a leftist. Maybe a distinction without difference. I try to make that difference between
establishment
lib and
grifter.
Leftist. Okay, so lib.
Well, no, I draw the distinction. Like there are liberals that you can talk to, and they're kind of like, oh, I didn't know that. I don't know about that. He's the guy. It's like, bro, come on. He's arguing. I don't know if that's true. I didn't see it, but if he was really arguing to Piers Morgan that Biden is fit, he might as well be in the CIA for all I
feel like a leftist would say Biden's totally not fit. We need to get AOC and
sure, a real leftist. Yeah.
When we invited David Pakman on the show, he said he wanted $5,000.
What, really? He asked for money? Wow.
Damn, that's very typical among liberals.
I wonder if Piers paid him.
They demand money.
It's outrageous.
They're like, yeah, I'll do it for money. And we're like, well, we don't pay guests, but have a nice day.
True capitalists. Damn.
I know, right?
I heard you paid
it's a
Trump for
grift.
that interview, but I don't know. Some people are saying.
It makes sense if you look at what David Pakman does. He's running a business. His goal is to throw red meat at liberals and just butter them up. So if he's like, if I'm going to do anything, it's for money. You know what I mean?
I don't understand why more libs don't come on, because if anything, they could feed their audience red meat, like attacking you on the show, like we've seen them do before.
They don't have the truth on their side.
Damn.
And so when Hunter Avallone came on the show and I said, Joe Biden told the president of Ukraine, if you don't fire the prosecutor, you're not getting $1 billion, he smirked and said that never happened. And then I played the video and he was humiliated. And then when the show ended, he's like, later, and he got up and just walked out, like just left. The thing is, if you're a leftist, you have no problem being like, yeah, Biden sucks. Next question. And we're like, okay, we agree on that. And then they'll make moral arguments for weird things, but you can't really argue moral opinion. So they'll say something like, I think woke thing is good. And you'll be like, woke thing is clearly bad because it leads to this. They can throw that to their base because they're like, here's me defending woke moral structure. And then you don't really get much out of it.
Kind of like the libertarians.
Yeah, but if you're dealing with a liberal who's like, Joe Biden is a sound mind and whatever, and then I can be like, here's an article where they say he's not. That's a fake news. Like, here's another article that says he's not. That's fake news too. They can't come on shows. That's why they don't. Because when they don't have control of the source material, this is what happens.
Brianna Joy Gray's out of a job. Maybe we have to try to bring her on.
Oh, you're asking them, you think we should pull a Chris Cuomo in this company?
Yeah, that's true.
Did they say why she was fired or what?
Let me pull it up. I don't believe so. I don't think they gave a reason.
Crystal Ball said that she was fired for, supporting the Palestinian people. That's her view on it.
Oh, it's because there was a viral video where a woman says something like "pray for the rape victims," and then she rolled her eyes at her.
Right. Yeah.
I think for some of these political commentators, it's more lucrative for them to just be super aggressive and get fired from their media companies, and then because then you get to ride the free speech wave, martyr wave. Look at me, I got fired for fighting for Palestinian rights. I'm fighting for Palestinians on Twitter, and I got fired for it. Look how important I am and how hard I am fighting against the Zionists.
It only works on the right.
Yeah.
The way the right media ecosystem works is independent actors who get subscribers and make videos that get views and make money, and they build an audience. The way the left ecosystem works, because they don't believe in meritocracy, is they're really bad at making networks and doing their own thing. So they rely on corporations to give them jobs. So when they get fired from their corporate job, they end up just fizzling out and going broke. Whereas people on the right, who are more merit-based, will be like, I'm going to figure out how to make money from this. But we're going to go to the members-only call-in show. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com right now. Click join us, become a member, because we're going to bring in y'all as callers to talk to us and ask questions. It'll be good fun, not so family-friendly, so you've been warned. You can subscribe to the channel. Follow me at Timcast on Instagram and X. Seth, you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, follow me on X at Seth Weathers, and go get yourself some Ultra Right beer at ultrarightbeer.com and win my 1981 Trans Am. It's just be a sad day to let that one go.
Elad Eliyahu, journalist here at Scanner News. You could find me and Scanner News on all platforms. Chris?
Yes, Chris Carr 17 on X, and be sure to check out scnr.com for all of your news junkie needs.
Good show, gents. That was fun. That car is sick, Seth. And yeah, we will get to the after show.
All right. We will see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.